A sunny day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the final day of qualifying for the 102nd Indianapolis 500-mile race. Yesterday, the 33 drivers that will compete in next Sunday's greatest spectacle in racing were determined. Today, where they will start in the grid will be set through more four-lap qualification runs. A recap of yesterday: Helio Castroneves is an early runner, and his time held up throughout the entire day. He was fastest yesterday. His Team Penske cohort, Simon Pagenaud, also an early runner. His time, set early, stood up throughout the rest of the day. It began to rain, interrupted qualification with James Hinchcliffe sitting at the front of the line. 2 hours and 21 minutes later, the rain stopped, the track was dry, and we were ready to resume. In the second segment of time trials, if you will, Danica Patrick, returning to the Speedway for the first time after her year spent in NASCAR, went out and laid down some numbers. She made the Fast 9 for today. Patrick solidly up the front of the 500 qualification grid yesterday. Then another rain shower briefly interrupted qualification after Robert Wickens had just started his laps on the track. Wickens able to come back after the track was dry and safely put his car into the field. Then we got to late afternoon, and the scramble for positions was on in full form. Ed Carpenter had waited throughout the day for a chance to make his run. He made it worthwhile. Second fastest speed for the two-time pole winner. But James Hinchcliffe, whose car had problems in his first qualifying effort of the day and didn't post a very good speed, found himself on the outside looking in late.
Very bad rotation. Vibration. Very bad vibration.
A tire pressure sensor had broken off in his car. The crew, not knowing what the problem was, scrambling to change the tires and get Hinch back to the front of the line before the qualification window ended. But when he got there, there was another car in line in front of him, also scrambling to make the race. Pippa Mann not able to qualify as time ran out, and Hinch left sitting in the time trial line, and to this point will not be in the Indianapolis 500 field. It was quite the day here on Saturday. You see the garage doors down where Hinch's cars were housed, while the rest of the team for Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports is preparing to go today to determine their starting spots in the Indianapolis 500 grid. Here are the speeds from yesterday. These 9 drivers will compete in the Fast 9 shootout later today on ABC, and they are some of the biggest names in motorsports, and particularly dominated by teams. Team Penske, as well as Ed Carpenter Racing, dominating that Fast 9. Then the rest of the drivers who will compete for positions 10 through 33 on the grid. Alexander Rossi, the fastest of those, as well as the former winner, Tony Kanaan. And the drivers toward the back of the field, including James Davison, who has had quite the adventurous weekend of his own to claim that 33rd spot as he sat on the bubble when time expired yesterday. And with that, we welcome you to Sunday of qualification weekend for the Indianapolis 500. Alan Bestwick with the 1998 winner Eddie Cheever and two-time runner-up Scott Goodyear. Start with the Hinch story. Scott, you've told us before, you have been bumped out of this 500 field. What was that day and that moment like for Hinch?
You know, when I was watching it yesterday with Hinch, I was feeling for him because I was that guy one year that stood there and realized that you were not in the field. And then you have to get out of your car. You don't want to take your helmet off because you're so emotional. So when I was watching James yesterday, I was living it with him because you have felt it, you could feel it, and you feel like you've lost control. And you don't know if you're going to be in the field. I mean, yes, there's business deals. That could happen, and maybe he does end up in the field. I took over a teammate car. I didn't have a great month of May that year. I had crashed and all those sorts of things, and it gets into your head. We didn't have the speed. But for James, you know, his teammates qualified. There was a speed, but circumstances, I think, just led into this. And as we know, Eddie, Indianapolis plays no favorites. I mean, Penske didn't qualify here one year. Rahal didn't qualify here one year. Didn't you knock out Rahal that year? It was you, wasn't it? Yeah.
Am I allowed to smile when you say that, or am I supposed to act
Just
like
asking.
I'm really sorry that I knocked Rahal out? And forgive me, Bobby.
Yeah. Your reaction to what you saw yesterday?
This place is brutal. It doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care who you're driving for. It doesn't care how hard you've prepared. If you make the smallest mistake, and a mistake was made on Hinchcliffe's car, it will punish you, and it did, and everything went the wrong way. What I found interesting yesterday is that a lot of the teams that were out there were rookies on bump day.
Yeah.
And there were certain things they could have done to guard their position better, and they didn't. And then all of a sudden, There was no more time.
Because we haven't had bumping here in a period of years. So now they're going through that for the first time, the ifs and whats and possibilities for rehashing before next year. But for now, we have the 33 drivers, for now, that are set for the Indianapolis 500-mile race. James Davison will be the first driver to go when the cars hit the track momentarily. Boy, what an adventure it's been through the weekend for him. This was 2 days ago in practice, the 33 car turning around in turn 2 and walloping the wall, not only damaging the car, but beating up Davison pretty well. Team spent all night repairing the car, came back yesterday. Driver has to get in the car and go out and lay it out there for 4 laps to try and qualify for the 500. He did just that.
As long as you don't break anything, it's not a problem. You'll be sore. You can get in the car. The hardest thing is telling yourself that it's not going to happen again, because you have to go out there if you're going to qualify and never take your foot off the throttle.
So James Davison has the 33rd spot from yesterday, and he's ready to go again today, Rick DeBrule.
Well, James Davison, Eddie Cheever just said, as long as you don't break anything, it's okay. You just have to psych yourself up for getting back in the car. How hard was that?
To be honest, not too difficult. After you've been racing for 10, 15 years and you've done a few Indy 500s and, you know, been in situations where you really need a man up going into like wet qualifying on road courses or street circuits or something like that, you know what to expect. You just focus on what you need to do, and that's what we did yesterday morning.
Let's talk about the roller coaster that yesterday was and talk about what your team, what they went through to get you back out there for qualifying.
I mean, they worked all night, and, you know, then we weren't sure that we had the speed that was required to make the show. I mean, it was a bit of a byproduct of, you know, the crash, you know. We had to trim on Friday to try find some speed, and when that happens, you can find yourself getting in trouble and running too free. But, I mean, we got on top of it. We ran stronger than we expected. And then we just had to sit on the time. And, you know, we didn't want to withdraw the time until we had to. But surely enough, I was on the bubble with 5 minutes to go. And that got a bit nerve-wracking. And obviously, the way it played out, I'm thankful for. And in a way, wish I could have gone back out and bettered my time. But I got the chance to do that today.
Well, the good news is he gets to go out and run one more time, but he's in the field. That's what matters. Jan?
And Rick, of course, he said that was somewhat stressful, but much more stressful, certainly, for people like Connor Daly. You had to make 3 runs yesterday. Only at the last moment did you really have the speed that you needed to get in the field. What was that like, the emotions of having to do that multiple times yesterday?
Yeah, it was a wild ride, that's for sure. You know, we were sort of just disappointed because the day before, Fast Friday, we actually had a decent amount of speed. Not really sure whether the heat just sort of affected what we were doing. We found a couple problems on the setup pad after the run 1 yesterday, but then we had to be a little bit conservative, so we didn't really know, you know, if we were going to make right side spring changes and then all of a sudden change the downforce. You know, that's tough to go out and just do it in a qualifying run. So thankfully, by run 3, we were able to just take as much as we could out of the car and just have a consistent run. I think that was really about it. And yeah, it was tough, man. Just really, really tough. But we made it in, and that's all that matters.
Now you take a deep breath. You have 1 run. You have 9 degrees hotter track temperature now. What's the goal for today now that you're in the field?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, we want to be up as much as we can, but realistically, we have to be safe about it because tomorrow's very important, race running. And, you know, for us, it's about trying to figure out, you know, what the conditions are like. You know, yesterday was a lot more humid, but today's hotter. So it's like, you know, there's a bunch of scientists back in the engineering office kind of going through all their numbers and looking at every weather app possible just to figure out how much downforce we're going to create. And that's really what we got to do is just try and be safe, but also be flat all 4 laps and just see how much speed the thing's got in it.
All right, have a great run.
Thank you so much.
Alan?
All right, Jan, thanks. So 33 drivers with the traditional 4-lap, 10-mile qualification run to determine their spot in the grid for the Indianapolis 500. First car rolls next. Back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, getting ready to set the starting grid for the 102nd Indianapolis 500-mile race. There is the trophy that the winner will get his or her face inscribed on after winning the 500. There are also some other prizes that are giving out during the week. They have a little thing here they call the last row party, where the drivers who earn the last row starting spots in the 500 come, and part of what they get is a jacket. Well, both of my pals here have been members of the Last Row Society. There, 1993. What's the year on yours, Scott?
1994. Very proud.
1994.
Yes.
Back to back. So we asked them to dig up these jackets as part of a little memorabilia search for this month. And I did notice Eddie's holding his hands behind because his arms have apparently grown since they fitted him for this jacket. Nice, still having the tags on there too, by the way.
Well, that's because he's a driver. He's cheap. He's hoping of maybe selling it when time comes.
But after yesterday, being on the last row was worth celebrating.
Absolutely. You know something, it's sometimes a little bit of an embarrassment, but there's some drivers that are outside right now that would be glad to be available for the evening festivities of Last Row Society, because when you get there, I have to say that maybe it's fun, maybe it's not, because you're getting ridiculed and you get to be known as the person in the last row, but there's a couple of people on the outside looking in that would be happy to do it now.
I only have one question to ask you. I remember that I got to choose the color of my jacket. Why did you pick that color?
Well, this was the year before they transferred over, I guess in '93. Maybe, I'm not really too sure. I think they wanted you to stand out.
Is it you are standing out?
There you go.
Is that a Canadian thing?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
And then you get to wear it to the victory dinner also.
Mine is a little bit, my tailor is going to be very disappointed that I'm wearing this jacket that's like 8 inches.
The point is that 3 drivers at some point this week are going to be celebrated as members of the Last Row Society. We'll begin finding out who they'll be momentarily. Jan, help me out of this, please.
Well, I can help you out with conditions, because if you're going to fill the last row today, or if you don't want to be there, you have to kind of master these conditions. You heard Connor Daly, and we talked about the fact that 9 degrees of additional track temperature, 117 right now. So we look at Oriol Servia's ride here. He did partake in the morning practice, and it was pretty warm this morning, a little more humid, and they found some of the issues that he had. Remember that severe bottoming that he had at the back of the car? They cured it yesterday with tire pressure and with wing angle, but they found kind of from the mechanical side what was wrong. They didn't reveal what that was. They feel they have more speed. But in these kind of conditions, you may recall, the hotter it gets, the more slippery the track, and the hotter it gets, the less dense the air. The less dense the air means the less downforce you have on the car. So a lot of tuning and trimming down here on a very warm afternoon. Alan?
Hi, Professor. Thanks. I guess one of the interesting differences between yesterday and today is, first of all, yesterday the window for qualifying was scheduled to be much longer. And even with the rain interruptions that we had, the conditions were drastically different in racing terms at different times of the day. The track temperature swings, the air density, and so on that Jan was just speaking of there. Today, with the window being shorter and everybody getting just one run, I think the conditions are going to be more consistent for more of the cars to go out.
And especially for a driver, when the wind is up, it usually changes a little bit. You have to compensate for that driving into the turn. So you look at those windsocks up on the pylon, also in turn 3, and you have to, like I said, compensate for it. Today, it should be just a smooth run. Eddie, all they have to do is work on the entry point and on their line, and most importantly, keeping their foot flat on the throttle.
It always comes down to how much throttle you're carrying. But let's remember what they're trying to do right now. You want to get as far up in the grid as possible, because the farther up you are, the less chance you have of getting caught up in an accident.
So the first car rolls, James Davison. The cars lined up where yesterday was in a random draw order. Today, lined up in inverse order of the speeds that they recorded yesterday. So Davison, 33rd fastest yesterday, is first on the racetrack, looking to make his 4th start in the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Remember, a year ago, he was the one that took over from Sebastian Bourdais in the Dale Coyne Racing 18 after Bourdais had that terrible crash in qualification weekend. Got very little practice in the car, went out, did a really respectable job in the race. This year, this program planned for a time, and now he's survived his own difficulties of the week, as we just documented a little while ago, and a chance here to figure out where he'll line up in the 500 grid.
Very respected driver within the paddock area, really a sports car ace, and what's really say an open wheel ace also. Very well thought of, very methodical. Engineers like working with him because he really truly listens and gives great feedback to the engineers on helping set the car up.
If you want to improve the car, you have to be really focused on giving that feedback back to your engineer, because if you don't, you can just spiral out of control here.
3rd-generation racer. His grandfather, Lex, was an Australian Grand Prix winner 4 different times. His father, John, also a top-level racer, former track promoter in Australia. He's got a real variety of schedule of racing this year. Driving here at the Indianapolis 500, done some sports car racing, done some driver coaching as well, is also going to be in a couple of NASCAR stock car races later on this summer on road courses in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, he tells me. So we'll see, as he did last year, by the way, driving for Joe Gibbs Racing a time. So Davison on the green flag here, and the first one to kind of give us a mark of where we're at on the day.
Interesting to watch this morning. Everybody having a morning practice, being able to go out there and get a feel for where today's car is with the conditions that we have. You get a couple of warm-up laps here in qualifying, so people go out and do what they call simulations. They'll do a green second time by, 4 laps on a flyer to give you an indication of what type of car you have. Nice today that we've actually just got off the track a couple of hours, so it gives you a good feel for what you might experience first time down at turn 1, trying to hold your foot flat in the gas.
I was just saying, his first lap is kind of slow. 2:11. His second was a 2:27.
Well,
let's remind everybody that it's a 4-lap average. It's not your single fastest lap.
Everyone guaranteed the 1 4-lap trip around today. And again, in this Group 1 qualifying, as they call it, the drivers, the best, the fastest, will start in the 10th position on the inside of row 4 for the Indianapolis 500. Now, today becomes about risk. By the way, the 2:11 you were looking at, that was his warm-up lap speed. His first lap was the 2:27. Risk management. You heard Connor Daly say that earlier when we spoke with him down in the pit lane. You've got a spot in the 500. How much do you want to hang it out if the difference is between being in row 11 and row 9? But if you feel you really left something on the table yesterday, there's been just enough talk about difficulty running in traffic that if you have aspirations of winning this race, being up on the 4th row is going to be a whole lot better for you than being back in the 9th or 10th row when they wave the green flag.
I hear what you're saying, but I would tell you from this point forward, all thoughts of all the race car drivers, maybe not the Fast 9 that we're going to see later this afternoon, but their thoughts have to be towards what can I do now to improve my chances of winning the 500 or finishing the 500. So taking a risk, qualifying and maybe qualifying 20th instead of 27th, I really don't think it makes any difference. To me, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. Mathematically, it's a bad bet.
That's what I'm saying, 20th or 27th. But 27th or 10th, if you feel you've got a shot at that, that's a big difference when they wave the green. That crew that worked so hard to repair that car overnight to give Davison a chance to be in the field, applauded him when he came in yesterday after his run, applauding him as well as he finishes. And so the 4-lap average, 226.255 miles an hour. That is 2.5 miles an hour quicker than he ran yesterday in qualifying.
They're consistently getting better and better, Scott, every time they run. So,
well, you certainly know more about your car and you get to make some changes, and obviously the weather conditions play into it. But what is interesting, when I was watching warm-up this morning that I just spoke about a second ago, a lot of the cars were starting to actually lose time over their 4 laps, much as we just saw.
yeah.
And then the situation, even Penske yesterday was going quicker as their run went on in qualifying. In this morning's practice, the Penske drivers started to go slow each continuous lap. So that's what I'm going to be watching for today. So consistency is going to play a huge part in your average time.
Maybe that's why he did his first warm-up lap, or getting up to speed lap, was so slow at 2:11, because yesterday, we saw lots of people doing 2:26s on the warm-up laps. That 2:11 really wasn't that fast. So maybe he's trying to save his tires, as you said, to get that consistency over the 4 laps that count.
Well, as Jan talked about, with the hotter temperatures that we have and everything that plays into it with the weather, this is some of the things that the engineers stress to the drivers and program the drivers on the way out.
So Connor Daly on the racetrack now had to make 3 qualification attempts. Yesterday was right there floating around the bubble. His last one fast enough to give him a little margin, and he was able to watch as Davison sat on the bubble when time expired, and Connor Daly in the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Driving this car that's a combined effort, Dale Coyne Racing with Tom Burns Racing. Daly going to be in his 5th 500. Best start was 22nd in 2015. And a young driver who has scrambled determinedly to find a regular place on the IndyCar grid with varying levels of success.
warm-up at 222.4 miles an hour, so a pretty stout warm-up that we followed up here for the first lap. We'll find out here in a second.
First lap, 2:24.9.
Car designed to look like a U.S. Air Force Thunderbird plane, sponsored by the United States Air Force and its recruiting command. And for Daly, this race, he talked about it yesterday, making the field for this race. He said not only important to him personally, growing up around here and this being such an important event for him, but important for his career. He said you come out here to try and qualify for this race when you're scrambling to try and establish a career in this series and you miss the race. It's not a good thing for you.
But when you do manage to get in after struggling as he did, all the team owners are paying attention. They're seeing how you deal under pressure. There's his dad, Derek, who I raced against in Formula 2 in the 1970s.
So the 224s, I'm sure they were anticipating maybe 226 range. I thought that's what we might see out of Connor this morning, but when he was out practicing, running perfect laps this morning also, just not the speed out of the car. Now, when I watch his lines, classic lines, nothing you can look at to say he should be doing anything different, so I would say he's getting the maximum out of the car.
Just a tick slower there, 2:24.2 on that lap, but one lap to go. There's Dale Coyne, the team owner.
And when you say slower, not a big drop off in speed, that 224.9, 224.5, 224.2. So it tells you that he's got everything out of that race car that is available, and he's riding it very consistently, very smoothly over the 2.5 miles.
We talked to Dale Coyne this morning about the difference between all of his cars. Bourdais is way up the field. And he said that the settings are similar, but there's small nuances of how the drivers change line and hold the steering wheel that really scrub off speed or don't scrub off speed. So that's a very hard thing to learn.
4-lap average, 224.429. So Connor Daly, second of the two that have run so far. Applause from the crew and for the crew after James Davison finished his run. Green flag at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for Oriol Servia, a native of Spain, now living in Los Angeles. Had his own struggles yesterday trying to make the 33-car grid for the 500. His first trip around the speedway, the car bottomed out badly on him in turn one, almost crashed, had to go back and regroup and try it again a couple of more times before finally he posted a speed fast enough to make the cut line.
Yes, he had one of the worst... He had a problem, one of the worst places you can, and that's turning into turn one. If you're going to have an accident at Indy, you always want to have it from the apex of the corner out. But when you start spinning or lose control going into the corner, you have absolutely no control of where you're going to hit, and he barely caught it in time. And when he got out of the car, you saw that he had talked to Jesus. It was one of the big eyes, and that was, I didn't want to do that again.
I'm only laughing at you because when you said if you're going to have an accident, the good place to have it's after the apex, and I'm thinking there isn't a good place to have an accident.
There's some that is less or not as bad as others. I have spun going into one before, and you're just floating around between the walls, hitting everything.
A little faster on his first lap than he did in morning warm-up, which is good to see because he was in the 225 range this morning. And the first lap at 226. Let's see what the second one is. 225.8.
Was that spin in turn one the one you told me about where you just sat there for several seconds and had to kind of count things and make sure that you were still...
Yeah, we were going 250 in the straightaway. And once the car stopped, I didn't have the courage to look down and see if my legs were still there. I joke about it now, but it wasn't very funny. Servia's 43. That's very impressive.
And that's when I stepped
go out there and do it.
I know, and that's when I stepped away from the sport. But so is Tony Kanaan, so is Elio Castroneves.
Yeah. 40's the new 30. Come on.
What's 60?
The new 50. So congratulations, you're only 50, and you didn't even know it.
Okay.
Can we have that 60th birthday party again as 50?
I'm feeling better already. We might invite different people for the 50th birthday.
Your hair's not any less gray. I got news for you.
Good run.
Checkered flag up for Oriol Servia, and after the day of drama yesterday, he is in the field. Second fastest of the three that have run so far, average 2:25.699. Rick DeBrule.
And the guy who's currently the fastest qualifier, James Davison. But let's talk about, after all of the drama that you went through after the last 36 hours, how good does it feel to be in this field, qualified with a time?
Amazing, but then even better when you lay down a speed that is unexpected. So, I mean, it's just another confidence booster and reward for this team after making the show yesterday. And then, yeah, it looks like we'll probably be moved off the last row, and who knows, we could maybe even end up in the mid-20s. I don't know, but we've improved every day after a lot of adversity, and I'm just really proud of this AJ Foyt, Bird, Hollinger, Bellotti team.
All right, James Davison dreaming of higher rows. We'll see what happens.
Well, you know, Rick, the speed that he put up today would have been good for 16th yesterday. Now, changing conditions and so on, we'll see how that all shakes out, but that was a really solid effort for Davison and that team. Talk about somebody that was relieved to make the cut line yesterday. Graham Rahal on the track now. They just have had their struggles over the last couple of days trying to find the speed in this car. As you look at team owner Bobby, along with David Letterman and Mike Lanigan, and boy, they just that whole garage area, Sato, Rahal, Servia, they just were searching for speed yesterday, and to get all three of those cars into the field, what a relief around that group, knowing now they have a couple of days to go back to their race trim and try and find speed for the race that they had in better supply earlier in the week.
And Graham spoke very openly when he first started running, and he's using up all the track you can see, so he's trying to get the speed out of the car. But Graham spoke openly that he said, I just hope that we can make the show because we just don't have the speed and we're searching. And Eddie, you've lived it, I've lived it. Sometimes you're here in the month of May and that you roll off the trailer and the car is great. Sometimes you get here and you roll off the trailer, you don't have the speed, you work at it, and he's getting high again. So you watch him work the steering wheel on the left-hand side. But he was open about it. I hope we get in the show.
Sometimes the settings are just not there, and the engineers have a really hard time to get out of a rut, and they have to rethink everything. And as you're doing that, the days are going by. So now he finds himself in the last attempt that he has to get himself up the grid. But he is one heck of a fighter. Wherever he starts in the race, if they give him a good car that's consistent, he can get all the way to the front.
4-lap average yesterday was 2:25.167 for Graham.
Well, he's on track to be a little bit faster than that, as his first lap was a 2:25.6. The throttle has not budged since he's left. Full throttle all the way around, top gear.
But when you listen here through the turns, you'll hear the RPMs of the engine drown down a little bit. That's cutting out speed. Let's listen. Now he's going to go down the backstretch into 3. We'll listen through turns 3 and 4. You hear the engine of the RPMs go down. That tells you your car's not handling as good as it should.
230 down the back straight.
Right there in 4 is probably the worst for the RPMs, dipping down just a little bit. Let's see what the lap is.
And 231 down the front straight. So the wind is, oh goodness, the wind is having very little effect.
Yes, there's that little RPM dip there that Scott talked about, and again right there.
When the car rotates through the turn, as you can see, he's pushing a button on the steering wheel, probably moving the weight jacker in the car to move some weight around the car so it can handle a little differently to his preference. You saw the windsock there, the wind not playing a part in the handling of the car. The RPM's just drowning down a little bit there, so not a bad run, but doesn't get the speed that he probably wished for.
4-lap average 2:25.327, so right in the ballpark of what they ran yesterday. Graham Rahal, third of the 4 drivers that have gone today to this point. So taking the track now, last year's winner of the Indianapolis 500, Takuma Sato, getting up to speed. Of course, Sato has come close and not closed in the 500. This racing Dario Franchitti and it not working out back in 2012. But lesson learned, and a year ago, racing Elio Castroneves for the win late in the race. And he powered by with 5 laps to go and closed the deal.
Those are two versions. One was Sato, Mr. Nice Guy, and one was Sato, I'm not going to do anything but own the corner. And that's the difference.
How good did that milk taste when you tasted it in Victory Circle?
Really good. And I'm lactose intolerant, so.
And you didn't care. You jumped right in anyway.
No.
Yeah. That's terrific. Well, for Sato, trying to, nothing harder than trying to go back-to-back, be it championship, be it winning this race. This race is hard enough to win without winning it back-to-back. But back with a team this year that he felt very comfortable moving to in Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan. And, you know, I mean, they've had some speed through the early part of the season, but, again, this whole group has struggled in the latter part of this week trying to figure it all out.
Let's call a spade a spade. They've had a hard time. They've had little bits of speed, but they've had both he and Rail have had a hard time getting their cars up to speed. So for Sato, who comes here as a defending champion, it's difficult to have to deal with that because obviously, as everybody does, he wants to follow up with a win. I think at this point, they're going to start. One can only hope that their race balance and what they can do in traffic has got to be better than what they've been able to do in qualifying. Jan?
One thing I can tell you is that just before Takuma Sato rolled out, they added a significant amount of downforce to the car. Now, mind you, they do roll the cars out sort of in a neutral configuration. They wait till the last moment. They now know the track temperature is 123. But they cranked a lot of front wing and some rear wing into this car. You can watch those straight line speeds, 231 I've seen, another one. So it hasn't slowed it down too much, but Graham Rahal complained the car was sliding too much. But of course, they had already made this adjustment before Sato rolled out.
All right, John, thanks. So here is Sato to complete his second lap. 226.6, so that's a couple pretty good numbers.
And he's doing 232 in the straightaway where Rahal was doing 231. So by putting more downforce in, the car is sliding less, and you can tell he's using about 3 feet less road than Rahal was using. He's not even close to that outer edge in the gray.
And you find yourself, because you're not sliding, coming out of the turn a little bit quicker.
Look at all that room. So he's being as tidy as he possibly can, and he's trying to turn the steering wheel the least amount that he possibly can. All of that increases drag when you start yanking around on the steering wheel.
Third lap speed is still in the 226s, so this is a really good run for Sato, averaging 226.6 at the moment. And if he were to have done that yesterday, that would put him up about 13th in line, which is, again, for track position for next Sunday. If that number can stick, that's a whole lot better than being back somewhere around row 10 when they wave the green.
You saw his right hand come off the steering wheel, go down below, making a small adjustment on the roll bar, I'm sure, just to tune the car for turns 3 and 4. Let's have a look to see what lap 4 is.
And the run finished for Sato, 226.557, fastest of those that have run today. It's a pretty good number for last year's Indianapolis 500-mile race winner. Coverage of qualifications for the Indianapolis 500 today. Don't forget the Fast 9 Shootout will be on ABC from 4 to 6 p.m. today. Next weekend, next Sunday, our Indianapolis 500 pre-race show presented by Pennzoil, 11 a.m. Eastern Time on ABC, and then the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race, telecast presented by Firestone at noon Eastern, also available here on the ESPN app. And watch ESPN, talking with drivers and strategists and team owners and whatnot. Everyone expects the competition at the front of the pack to be just what you've seen for the last 5 or 6 years, swapping the lead back and forth, and it should be a pretty intense day next Sunday. Max Chilton on the track, and we check downstairs on pit road.
Yeah, let's check in with Graham Rahal. Talk about an intense day. This has been an intense week. How hard has this week been on you?
Well, yeah, I mean, we just, from the word go on Tuesday, we haven't had the pace, and it's been disappointing. I know everybody on this United Rentals team has worked as hard as they possibly could, but it's the facts right now. It's the facts of life that we didn't have a good qualifying car. We ran the exact same setup as Takuma. You can see it's an hour and a half slower. Why? Couldn't tell you. The engineers can't tell you. Everybody's worked their butts off on our team, for the 15 car. We've swung through the fences. We've tried a bunch of stuff. Nothing works. Nothing. The car does a 25.5 in any setup, and I don't know why, but that's what it is. And, like I said, we'll move on, and now we'll focus on the race. Practice tomorrow. We're just happy to be in the race at this stage. And, we'll go carb day, hopefully get a little better.
Like Graham Rahal, just before we were talking, I asked him if the car was going to race any better than it qualified. He looked at me and said, I don't know.
Well, there's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's not really a good feeling going into the Indy 500. But you can tell he has a lot of frustration.
Hope is not a good strategy.
Hope is not a strategy.
There'll be practice tomorrow in race trim for the teams, and then they get the 1 hour on carb day later in the week on Friday, and that's it. So the week-long practice this week, a lot of which was spent in race trim, and they still haven't found the answers they're looking for in Graham Rahal's camp. 2:26.4, the 3-lap average so far for Max Chilton. In the Gallagher Chevy for Carlin, and Max half a lap away. That's a pretty good number right now, tracking just behind Takuma Sato.
And just a little slower than he had this morning. So telling you that track temperature that Jan talked about, starting just to creep up. It doesn't take much, a half a degree here and there, just to slow cars down just a little bit. And probably we're seeing that effect, but a pretty strong 4-lap average.
Checkered flag, and Chilton last lap a little bit slower, so he'll be down to 2:26.212. That'll put him third of the cars that have run. Sato, Davison, and Chilton now the order of those that have run. You see the difference in the track temperatures yesterday to today with the cloud cover we had yesterday and the rainstorms that cooled the pavement down a couple of times during the session.
Well, you put that in perspective with people at home. I mean, if it was 20 degrees warmer outside and you're working in your garden, how much you would feel that. The race car is the same sort of thing because it's 20 degrees track temperature. The car handles completely different.
The car handles different, and the engine doesn't have as much power.
So Jack Harvey due next onto the racetrack. There is James Hinchcliffe here at the Speedway. So the question has been thrown out several times since the end of yesterday's bump day. Will Hinch be in the 500 field? Will the team find some way to put him into an alternate car? I spoke with the team principal Sam Schmidt this morning back in Gasoline Alley. Sam told me there have been discussions that have taken place, both within his team and with other outside teams. However, there is nothing imminent. Nothing would be done in time for today to see Hinch in a car today. They have worked on it. They have talked about it. Now, you look around and you see that Sam has an interest in 3 cars of his own in the field. He had Hinch's, he had Robert Wicken's car, and he has the car that Jay Howard drives, which is a one-off Indy 500 only effort. Then the partnership as well with Mike Shank Racing and the car that Jack Harvey is behind the wheel. You say, okay, well, one of those drivers, well, each of those cars has their own sponsorship commitments that they've made. 2 sponsors. Jay Howard worked all year to develop his sponsors to be in this race. Are you going to ask him to give up that ride? Can you contractually have him give up that ride? As Hinch gives Steph Wilson the thumbs up sign. It's very complicated. Will something happen? It's a possibility, yes. But nothing was going to happen in time to put Hinch in a car for today's qualification session. We'll just have to follow it along and see how the business of the business goes. As we both know, it's happened before. It can certainly well happen again.
I'd just like to add one thing to what you're saying. All of these programs were put together probably 4, 5, 6 months ago, and all of that sponsorship money has been spent.
Yeah. So, a business arrangement.
It would have to be a transaction.
In favor of it or not? Should it be allowed by the rules? Should it not?
I think it has to be allowed by the rules because everybody has a commitment. Now, if you can go ahead and make something that's beneficial to 2 groups of sponsors and they end up being on one car, maybe that works out because This is a sport, but mostly it is a business. And, you can see how popular James Hinchcliffe is when he walks along the paddock area, not only to the teams, but also the fans. So it brings a question into play here, is that sometimes people say, should the 22, 24 drivers, teams that are here that are on the permanent circuit, the franchise, be guaranteed an entry into the event? We're not really too sure. Jan?
Well, you talk about the popularity of James Hinchcliffe, and I think we see the character as well. You went down, you're giving thumbs up to your fellow drivers. Now you're here with your other teammate, Robert Wickens. Is that the way you can kind of get through the heartache of yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, it's still one team, one dream, right? Obviously everybody in the whole team, it's not just the 5-car. We are a big family, and everybody was gutted about what happened yesterday, but it is what it is. Can't do anything about it now. We've got 3 cars that we got to focus on getting as high up the grid as possible, so just going to be here for the guys. Jack's out there now, obviously. I already spoke to Jay, going to be here for Robbie's run as well, and just trying to get one of the Schmidt-Peterson Motorsport cars up, hopefully in 10th, and cheer these guys on for the race as best we can.
There's obviously been a lot of perspective as to whether you will be actually in the race or not. There have been many situations in the past where drivers have been put in at later times. Sam Schmidt has said at the moment you haven't figured it out. What's your read on how that might or might not come together?
Honestly, as much as I do. I know there have been conversations and that there have been ideas floated around, but certainly nothing concrete. You always kind of remain hopeful, but at the same time, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It wasn't meant to be. We didn't get the job done when we had to, so that one's on us, and we just have to put our heads down and focus now. There's 100 points up for grabs in Detroit. That's what we're focused on now. We're going to be the freshest, spryest team when we get to Belle Isle, and hopefully that bodes well for us. In the meantime, we're just hoping for one of these guys to end up at victory lane.
Thank you, James. Certainly what you can see demonstrated down here. He talks the walk, walks the talk, that is. A team player all the way.
All right, John, thanks. 2:25.254 for Jack Harvey, his 4-lap average. Here's what I'll say this about Hinch and yesterday. Made no apologies, made no excuses. Said it was on us to get it done, and we didn't. It's nobody else's fault. It's not, it talked about, well, should somebody else have been on the track when you were trying? He said, no. Why do I have more right to it than they do? No excuses whatsoever, and for that, so much respect for James Hinchcliffe and the way that he dealt with yesterday and is dealing with yesterday.
And obviously a fellow Canadian, I have to tell you, when we left the booth yesterday, I turned my phone on. It had blown up with everybody that I know in Canada saying, I can't believe it. What a blow to the Canadian fans. But to your point, Alan, he would tell you the same thing. Sorry to the fans that are up there, but we just didn't get the job done.
We'll see how that story plays out over the course of the next couple of days. He may not be in the field. But for now, Hinchcliffe here to cheer on his teammates. And Jack Harvey, again, just finishing his qualification attempt. Did someone mention Canada?
I was just about ready to say that.
Zach Claymon-DeMello from Montreal is on the racetrack now. One of the rookie drivers in the field for his first time on the Speedway in an IndyCar. Looking to make his first 500 start. You talk to Zach, and Zach is very much of his generation. Right? Couldn't look any more relaxed or casual. If he's nervous inside, you'd never know it. Got the hat turned around backwards.
On his phone.
On the phone, play, whatever he's doing. Sitting in a recliner in their garage back in Gasoline Alley. Very much of his generation, but is very fast in a race car.
Very fast and very focused. You can tell when he gets in the car, he knows what he has to do, and he's learning at a very rapid pace. One of the worst things that can happen when you come to this place is that you don't continue to listen. Listen to what the car is telling you, what the engineers are telling you, because you have to respect the speed here. And he's done that. He's been impeccable.
And when you talk about that, but the patience, and when we think about that, I think about Nelson Piquet in turn 4 in practice one day, not having the patience, and recall what happened with that, a big collision into the wall, and ended up doing some damage to his feet.
He was getting frustrated because every time he went fast, they put out a yellow.
Yes, what a great first lap.
227. There you go. Remember, they're going in inverse order of their speeds yesterday, so the faster cars will go as we move on through the session. Claymon-DeMello, of course, in this race as a substitute for Pietro Fittipaldi, who was supposed to have this race in this 19 car, but was injured in a World Endurance Championship crash at Spa-Francorchamps a couple of weeks ago now. Injuries to both his left leg and right ankle. Fittipaldi back here in Indianapolis, working with the noted doctors and orthopedists here in Indy on his rehabilitation, and expects to be back in the car as the summer goes on. And that opened the door for Clayman DeMello, who is the other driver of this 19 car this year, to get the drive here.
He's using hardly any track at all, and he's doing really fast times. He did 2 laps in the 2:27s. The first one was 2:27.5, and the second one was 2:27.1.
2:27.1, yeah. So not using any track. Good sign, bad sign?
Very good sign. That's what Castroneves did yesterday.
But the thing that we're seeing today, the trend that we're seeing today, is that those 4 laps are starting to trail off on speed, which yesterday there was a lot of consistent laps, or maybe a little quicker as the 4-lap run went on. Today, because of the heat that Jan's been talking about, I think this is going to be the trend that we're going to see. The times will definitely dip off going through your 3rd and 4th lap.
And interesting for a rookie driver like Clayman DeMello, who was first out on the track yesterday, but his first qualifying run yesterday here at Indianapolis. Now he has that experience to know how this car is going to change over those 4 laps. I know it's a small sample size.
Yeah, well,
he's doubled his experience in one day.
That's right.
Eddie and I are
Isn't that
laughing.
amazing? Just think what he'll be like at the end of the race.
But you're sitting here saying yesterday he has no idea what he's in for. Well, now he does.
That's what I was saying before. He's
Yeah.
a good listener. He's always paying attention. He always gets better.
There's your fastest so far today. Just a skosh under 227 miles an hour. Zach Clayman DeMello, the leader in Group 1 qualifying on this Sunday at the Brickyard. Back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on qualification day for the 500-mile race, setting the starting order of the 33 drivers who made the field yesterday. Here is Charlie Kimball on the racetrack. Very sharp-looking race car. I like those colors, huh? Stand out nicely. Kimball, the California driver, former winner in the Verizon IndyCar Series, having a go here. His team, brand new to the IndyCar Series this year. And even though all the teams are working with a new specification race car, that's a big mountain to climb, to be a brand new team and get it all organized and ready to go and understand. But this Carlin group seems to be coming along little bits at a time and in a very orderly progression.
I think a lot of that can be attributed to Kimball. He's very methodical. His father is a very successful Formula One engineer at, I believe, McLaren. So he has the right sort of approach to a race, which I think would really help a brand new team. But Carlin is a rookie team here, but they have been successful at everything they have done in Europe.
And a lot of the IndyCar drivers today have actually been through the Carlin training system, running for one of the Carlin teams over the many years, And when I think of Charlie Kimball, I asked him one time if he remembers the very first race he really paid attention to at the Indianapolis 500, and he said he certainly did. 1997. If you remember 1997, that's when we had the rain delay. Came back Monday, didn't get completed. We came back on Tuesday. And I said, "Oh, you remember watching?" He says, "Yes, especially because I had to convince my mom to let me take the day off of school so I could stay home and watch the race."
Well, there's
no way around it. This race is in the family bloodlines, and it gets a hold of you and does not want to let go. And Charlie's passion for this place and this race certainly runs deep. 33 years old, looking to be in his 8th 500-mile race, and coming down here to take the checkered flag and see what kind of shape he's in. 4-lap average 2:26.657. That's second fastest of the drivers that have run today. So decent effort there for Charlie Kimball. Jan?
Well, with the ultimate Indy rookie experience yesterday for Robert Wickens, you had a little bit of everything. You had rain, you had to come back and run before the car cooled, but you were quick this morning in the practice, so hopefully you found some more speed.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing was, I think as a team, we lost some speed yesterday with temperatures and everything, but like you said, I mean, for your first 500 qualifying, I mean, I don't know how many guys have actually done half their quali and then get a yellow for rain and then have to do it again immediately after. So it was a nerve-wracking day, but I feel like we have more speed in our number 6 Lucas Oil car than what we showed. Realistically, the way it panned out in hindsight, we probably didn't have enough for Fast 6 yesterday, but definitely the target's trying to get around that 10th, 11th today.
All right, have a great run. Thanks. Rick?
Well, Jan, we're standing by with Zach Clayman DeMello. For a guy who wasn't even supposed to be in this race, right now you're the fastest qualifier. How does that feel?
Yeah, it's a good feeling. We improved the car a lot as a team. We struggled a bit yesterday with no toe speed, so to get where we are today, I'm extremely pleased with, and we know we have a better race car than we do qualifying car, so I'm excited for the race to see what we can really do.
How much did you get out of Sebastian Bourdais in his run yesterday?
Just looking at his data, having an experienced teammate and what he says with the car is really helpful, but we're quite different, but still just having him around is helpful.
All right, once again, Zach Clayman DeMello. By the way, I was asking him if he'd ever been to the Indy 500. He says he's done the Freedom 100, but he's never stayed for the race. Now he's got a reason to be here.
Yeah, he sure does. He'll have one of the best seats in the house for it, too. Zach Veach, driving for Andretti Autosport, said yesterday that a problem developed on his car after his first lap, and he just had to kind of ride it out as he looks to make his second start in the Indy 500. So they figured out what the problem was. We'll see what kind of a number he posts today versus yesterday. But young man with a big smile, great personality. And when Michael Andretti says, hey, this kid's got a lot of talent, I'm going to make a 3-year commitment to him to grow him into an IndyCar Series winner and championship contender, that's a really big statement.
Did they tell you what the problem was?
No, of course not.
Well, that's unfair. He is very talented, always very happy. He's got a great attitude, and you said it perfectly. When somebody with the experience and the knowledge that Michael Andretti has puts his hand on your shoulder and says, I'm going to work with you, that's a big deal.
And then his teammates that he has in the team, when you think about the drivers that he has there to be able to draw that data from and to ask questions and just to look at across the dinner table and have conversations about it, you understand what that's like. It's just more knowledge. It actually advances you. You can be spending a year in the race car, but you're gaining 3 or 4 years of knowledge from having teammates like that. Great for Zach Veach.
And what's awesome in a team like Andretti's, you're allowed to go look at the other driver's setup, and you're allowed to overlay your data on their data, the line, how much pressure you put on the steering wheel. So there's a lot that you can emulate, and just by copying and listening, you can jump forward. Hunter Ray, how about being able to look at Hunter Ray's data?
Right.
Or Rossi, who's had an incredible season.
Now, could you do that in Formula One?
No, when I was teammate with Alan Prost, his data was
secret.
It was off-site.
Yeah.
I didn't even know where it was.
It's interesting, isn't it, how the concept of team racing has changed.
Yes. And Penske is the best at that.
Yep.
I would say Penske are the ones that are the best at that, and everybody at Penske is a #1 driver. I'm not saying they're not at other teams, but in Penske, everybody has the right stuff, and when the musical chairs start, it's the guy that is performing the most that gets replaced.
You know, when I'm watching this on the left-hand side of the screen, just watching the cockpit right now, he turns the steering wheel not near as much as we saw some of the people yesterday turning it. So it tells you the car is very balanced. It's very neutral. That means it will not scrub off speed. Sometimes we're seeing the full glove from some of the drivers turning through the turns yesterday. So for Zach Veach right now, he's probably getting to the utmost out of this race car.
Yesterday's 4-lap average was 225.805. Checkered flag here. Today's average will be 225.748. So actually just a tick slower today than yesterday, though much warmer track temperatures on this Sunday than they were on Saturday. The month of May is full of open-wheel thrills. This race has been building for more than a century. Heroes, heartbreak, history. All that has happened before and will happen again in one afternoon. It's the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500. Coverage begins at 11 a.m. on ABC. If you're watching this on Watch ESPN and the stream and you've taken the time to seek it out, I assume you are a fan of this event and this place. And you're probably a fair bit excited for next Sunday. If it's anything like the last several years have been, it's going to be a great race. Here's where we stand so far in Group 1 qualifying on this Sunday in Indianapolis. Zach Clayman DeMello has set the fastest time. Charlie Kimball, Takuma Sato, James Davison, and Max Chilton next in line. Remember, the cars running in reverse order of the speeds they posted yesterday on Bump Day. And then later on today, the Fast 9 shootout. 9 drivers to determine who's the pole sitter for the 102nd Indianapolis 500. Here's Gabby Chavez on the track. Harding Racing. Chavez, former 500 Rookie of the Year, as well as INDYCAR Rookie of the Year. A team that made its Indy 500 debut in this race a year ago, this Harding Racing Group, and had a pretty solid drive. It came up for a 9th place finish after starting a little bit deeper in the field. A really, really good effort for a group that was just in its infancy.
And when you're not at all the events and you just do the 500, there's a lot of pressure, not only in the driver, but also on the crew members, not only to get everything right, but remember, you're just coming out for that one event. So like I said, a lot of pressure on that. When I think about Gavi Chavez, another product of the Mazda Road to Indy and also the 2014 Indy Lights champion, he's been someone that's been well thought of in IndyCar racing and throughout the paddock. A lot of talent, a lot of dedication. And Brian Barnhart, that used to be the chief steward here at the INDYCAR series, is now over there as team manager and says he's very impressed with what he says. And Eddie, when you have a coach on your team...
You're stealing the one line I wanted to say.
Well, go ahead, take that.
You did it again.
Well, go ahead and take that.
Al Unser Jr.
Yeah.
You think he knows his way around here?
Well, and great to see the Unser legacy celebrated last night at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum. I went over and attended that with Bobby Unser was there, Al Unser Jr., and a lot of people showing up to show their support for what the Unsers have done with 9 victories here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
I hear there were some colorful stories told.
There was, and it's not something that would be available on TV.
There you go, 2:26.007, the 4-lap average for Gavi Chavez. That is 15th at the moment of the drivers, on the grid at the moment. Let's hear from Charlie Kimball. He spoke with Rick just a few moments ago.
Well, Charlie Kimball, you had a big team changer in the offseason, all kinds of changes. How good does it feel to be in this race right now?
It feels amazing. I think the Carlin Racing guys have done such a great job over the course of the winter getting ready for this race in particular. Yesterday, our experience of qualifying at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway went from 0 to 1, and today we doubled that. So I'm proud of all the work that the guys have put in, the mechanics, the engineers, management, everybody, to get us to this point. We have 2 cars headed to the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500, and I couldn't ask for more for the Novo Nordisk Team 23.
There we go, Charlie Kimball, keeping it all in perspective.
That bright smile says it all about what it means to be in the field and to be done qualifying.
The relief.
At Indianapolis, yeah. Another one of the feel-good stories in this field, Stephen Wilson, the 28-year-old originally from England, now living in the Denver, Colorado area. Of course, the brother of the late Justin Wilson, made his debut in this 500 a couple of years ago, was supposed to be in it again last year, was asked to and did give up his ride when Andretti Autosport had the opportunity to put Fernando Alonso in a car, was promised he would have a seat in this year's race. That promise was delivered on by all parties involved. Then they came out and struggled for speed a little bit. Stefan said after qualification yesterday, the last couple days before yesterday were really tough. But when yesterday was over and he had his spot secured in the field, the beaming smile was shining brightly everywhere. And it's great to see Wilson take the green flag here as he looks to determine where on the grid he'll take the green flag from next Sunday.
He wasn't by himself struggling for speed, Scott, was he? There were lots of teams who were trying to figure out what they had to do to these new cars to go fast. But it seems that everybody is kind of back on track now. Nobody's having any diabolical moments, and I think his effort of just coming here once a year like that and putting it in the show says a lot. And he's strong.
Yeah, and a very smart driver, because when a car doesn't work very well, some people that only come out once a year think that they really have to go and prove themselves on that particular day. Where you're here all month, if it doesn't work, the best thing is sometimes go back in the garage, not run it for the remainder of the days. His first lap is 2:26.2.
That's a stout lap.
Very, very good lap for him. And, you know, sometimes you go and overdrive the car. I've been guilty of that here one time and crashed in turn 4 very heavily because you feel like you need to get it done. You see a little bit of head bobbling there, and that's how quick the wind comes up over the front of the car. And so that is adjustable to drivers. You can go to the helmet manufacturer, and they'll give you little wickers you put on top of your helmet to make the helmet more settled down. Because when your head buffets like that going in the turn, guys, as you know, Eddie, it's difficult to have your sense of where you're going.
Like his brother, Stefan's a tall guy, so that's something to be dealt with for the 6'3" tall driver. Second lap, 2:25.943. Stefan, of course, racing with the logo "Driven to Save Lives" on the side of his Honda. Organ donation, such an important cause to him to promote. Of course, his brother Justin, after the terrible accident at Pocono, that eventually ended his life. They was an organ donor, and the organs that were donated after Justin's crash saved 5 lives. And certainly a cause that Stefan and Justin's family have signed on to promote and make sure stays visible in the eyes of race fans everywhere. Man, look at that head. Yeah, so he has some work to do there on that before the race.
You'll never last 500 miles like that. It's difficult to get through the first 4 laps here just for qualifying.
2:25.603 was the 3rd lap, so he's just under 226 miles an hour for the 4-lap average. His time yesterday was 2:25.909, the 4-lap average. So this is going to be tracking very close to that, unless something really falls off here in this last couple of corners.
It's amazing today how all of the laps have slowed down from the first one that they put in.
Well, we talked about that early on.
Consistently slower.
Track temperature. 2:25.863, 16th of the moment on the grid. Robert Wickens getting a go-get-him from James Hinchcliffe, his teammate. We'll see Wickens next. Coming up, the Fast 9 shootout with some of the biggest stars in the sport and a couple of young surprises mixed in as well. 9 drivers, 1 4-lap attempt on the track, 1 pole winner for the 102nd Indianapolis 500-mile race. ABC at 4 o'clock Eastern Time is where our coverage will continue, as well as right here on the ESPN app and Watch ESPN. Working through the Group 1 qualifying for starting positions 10 through 33 in the 500 grid. Here's Kyle Kaiser, California native and former Indy Light Series champion, who will be in his first Indy 500 after a really solid run yesterday. We talked about young teams developing experience. Ricardo Juncos' team here last year with 2 cars in the 500, but had been a man fielding entries in the feeder series as well, just like Trevor Carlin's team. Now back with a year's experience under their belt in the organization here in the 500, and Kaiser had a pretty solid first qualifying effort yesterday.
I think you have to always define what you're trying to do on your rookie year, unless you are Ganassi with somebody like Montoya. In this case, it was important to get him, have a trouble-free, no-accident month, qualify the car, which he's doing now, and then just finish the race. And they have been on mark for all 3 of those things so far.
I think Ganassi defined Montoya back at that time as we're just going to dominate. Isn't that about right, Jan?
It is, and Marco Andretti is just about to get his helmet on to get ready to go today. Again, in practice, you showed your car is good in a draft. You and Ryan Hunter-Reay at the top of the charts, but how did it feel on your own?
We found something yesterday, and so I really wish we got that last run yesterday. We were about to go out just like Hinch was, but didn't get to show it. So hopefully we can show it today. We'll see.
You were one of the first drivers, certainly one of the first people to go to Hinchcliffe, lean in the car, and say something. What did you say to him?
It was tough. I said, man, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. And I think I was the one that told him that because he was like, well, I still have 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh, boy, I think they miscommunicated because they don't have 10 minutes, you know. So it was a tough moment for sure.
Have a great qualifying run.
Marco Andretti out shortly. White flag for Kyle Kaiser. Pretty good looking run here. 3 laps in the 226s. That one 226.31. Ooh, boy.
That was almost the end of a pretty good run.
Yeah, but he wasn't lifting. But what a great young man. Remember we met him back at Phoenix. Bright smile, just full of excitement and loves the sport.
Big personality. Let's see what happens here with this last couple of corners, but boy, that was a slide.
I bet he's relieved he doesn't have to do that turn 1 again.
Checkered flag, and the completion of his first Indianapolis 500 qualifying weekend. Kyle Kaiser, 226.398, the 4-lap average. Pretty good considering this close call in turn 1.
Well, actually, when I'm starting to look at the windsock now, we have picked up a little bit of wind, and that's going to be so close. So you got a bit of a tailwind going to 1. That means the car is being pushed a little bit.
That was actually loose. That was loose.
Yeah.
The back end was coming around.
Yeah.
Exhale, gentlemen, and we'll check with Rick.
Yeah, we're sitting with Gabby Chavez, who just watched that. What do you think about Kyle Kaiser's run?
He had a good save there at the end. Good for him.
All right, let's talk about what's the importance of today. Is it more important to go as fast as you can, move up as far in the field as you can, or is it more important just to keep it off the wall?
Well, you want to do both. You want to be fast and you want to stay on track. So it's a balance. You know, how much do you risk? And hopefully when you do, it pays off.
You were talking about this car is different this year in terms of where your position on the grid is going to be and how it's going to affect your race.
Yeah, it just seems like in traffic it's a bit more tough to be able to make the overtakes. So track position is probably going to be a little bit more important than it has been. But, I mean, you know, this is a really long race. Anything can happen. Pit stops, luck, everything. So you name it. So we just, you know, we're in it. We've had a competitive car in traffic all month. Just try to make it even a little bit better.
All right, Gabby Chavez in the race. Now we just have to figure out how to make it go fast.
I think some of the words for next Sunday are going to be being opportunistic as we look at Robert Wickens begin the get up to speed process. Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports number 6, Lucas Oil sponsored, looking for his first Indianapolis 500-mile race start next Sunday. Opportunistic. People have talked about once you get 4th, 5th, 6th in line, it gets harder to pass than it is for those first 2 to swap the top spot back and forth. But the cars are trickier to drive in that traffic, so people making mistakes in front of you may be more plentiful than they've been in the recent past. But you got to be ready. When somebody makes a mistake, you got to take advantage of it to hop up that spot in line and keep doing it. You have to be opportunistic, is a way that someone whose opinion I respect very much explained it to me.
I agree, but whenever you're looking at a car that's running at Indianapolis Motor Speedway in traffic, you cannot only look at the car that's in front of you. You have to look at least 300, 400 yards ahead of you because you're going to be there in less than a second and a half. So opportunistic is true, but you also have to defend yourself against stepping in an accident that you could have avoided, because you can't avoid it when you're right there. If you remember Dixon's accident last year, that started all the way turning into turn 1, that he committed to a line and couldn't get out of that line. Yep. So you're right, but it's going to be different. I think everybody's going to be learning how to pass. At some point in the race, they're going to be learning, because going out there and playing racing with everybody in practice is different than going out for the Indy 500, where you can't come in the pits and say, oh, I need a little bit more front wing. Let's get back to Wickens. This guy has been phenomenal. Everywhere they've put him, he's been fast. Here, Phoenix.
He's Canadian. But anyways, continue. What were you saying?
Let's get back to Wickens and tie that all in. So he's going to make his first Indianapolis 500 drive. What's he going to learn in the late stages of those 500 miles that he doesn't know now?
Well, let me tell you what he's going to learn at the very beginning, because everybody goes through this. They will tell you, and all the veterans will tell you throughout all the programming in the month of May, what to expect on the start, what to expect in the first lap. No matter how much you listen, how much you actually believe what they're saying, which you will, you have to experience the very first time. Can you remember your first start?
It's like being in a washing machine.
Yeah, it's like you have no control of your car. You take your foot off the gas, and the car continues to keep up with speed because you're being sucked along in this draft. And it's different if you start at the front or at the back. But for Robert Wickens and all the rookies in here, you have to go through an experience. I didn't think I was going to make the first lap, the very first race that I was here, because I just felt like I wasn't in control. So for Wickens and the rest of the rookies, and as we see him now, he's doing consistent 226s. It's going to be something that you'll never forget as a race car driver.
And getting back to your question at the end, just sit and watch what Kanaan did 15 times when he won the Indy 500. Just watch that. That's what it's been like the last 5 years. I think this year it might change. I think you might have somebody that can put 20, 30 yards of distance between him and the car that's following him. This is a very good run. Every lap has been above a 226.
But he's been working at the car. You see him coming out of 2 there, just moving the steering wheel a fair amount. I think that he's got something underneath him right now that's a little bit on the edge.
And his laps have gotten progressively slower. His last one was a 226.023.
Here's Sam Schmidt, the team principal, watching as Wickens comes to the checkered flag. And the 4-lap average for Wickens, 226.296. Applause from Hinch, his teammate. A well done from Sam Schmidt. And Wickens' qualification experience has just doubled here at Indy. Coming up next on ABC, the Fast 9 shootout to set the first 3-row starting order of the Indianapolis 500. Next Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, our pre-race show presented by Pennzoil. Got some great things planned for you there. And then the 102nd Indianapolis 500-mile race, our telecast presented by Firestone, noon Eastern. ABC also available on the ESPN app. These grounds will be jammed with people. The excitement level will be off the charts. And I can't wait to see, as my old pal Benny Parsons used to say, who's going to win next Sunday on ABC. Will it be 23-year-old Sage Karam of Nazareth, Pennsylvania, trying to put his name on the map as the winning Indy 500 driver from Nazareth versus, say, Mario Andretti?
I like this young man. Very energetic, a lot of charisma. Wrestling champion back in his hometown. His dad's a wrestling coach. And we talked about it yesterday, Eddie. One of those drivers that just can find speed here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You had a young driver, last name of Schechter, that was much the same way, that could find a lot of speed, a lot of youth. But I think now for Sage that he's got 5 years coming here to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I think he's going to actually finish and have a good finish here because he knows that he has to have patience. And Jan, you have more?
I do. Interesting to watch these last couple of laps, Scott, because he said they were unsure whether more downforce or less was the way to go today in qualifying, and he, as you can see, has gone with less. We saw earlier on someone like a Takuma Sato adding wing at the last moment. They've gone with less, so these last 2 laps will be a bit of a hanging on for Sage Karam.
And Jan Scott was talking about that windsock, and we've seen Karam get a little high in turn 1 each of the last couple of laps, and that might be the trend we're seeing here due to the wind direction. So tracking right now, as you see, to be in 18th position. The highest starter of this group of qualifiers will be in 10th. Checkered flag for Sage Karam, and he'll drop to 19th, 225.823, the 4-lap average speed. Minute ago, Rick spoke with Kyle Kaiser.
Well, Kyle Kaiser, you made everybody in the booth do a big inhale and hold their breath for a couple of moments on those laps. You were pretty close to the wall. Explain that qualifying run.
Yeah, that was a tough one. On the first lap, you know, the track temps are high, so our car felt a little loose, so I set it a little bit stiff on the front bar for a little understeer. And then as the run went on, it got more and more understeer, but the track's still hot, so it still felt a little free. And it was getting closer and closer to the wall, so I kind of had to close my right eye a little bit when I was tracking out. But we brought it home. We had a pretty good lap. It was tough because the wind changed direction throughout the run, so I had to start grabbing different gears we weren't expecting to grab, but I'm very happy with that.
The rookie's in the field, and he did it safely.
Closing one eye.
Yeah.
Is that a strategy?
That's why he does that at his age, and we're up here.
All right. Here's Jay Howard on the racetrack now, the 37-year-old, originally from England, now here in the Indianapolis area, driving for Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports, looking to make his 3rd start in the 500. Teammate to James Hinchcliffe and Robert Wickens. When Hinch failed to qualify yesterday, a lot of the speculation fell. Would Hinch be placed into this car? But again, as Sam Schmidt told us earlier today, Jay's worked all year to put his sponsorships together and to earn the right to be in this ride, and has put in a solid week of practice, so it's just not that simple. And if you're a driver, you don't want to give up your ride. You want to be in the Indianapolis 500. So we'll see where all of that goes down the road. For now, though, Jay out to see where this 7 car and himself will slot in the grid of 33.
You know what I'm finding interesting here? A little bit different from yesterday. It all goes back to the ambient temperature and the track temperature that Jan profiled earlier in the show, that the outlaps now are going at a lot slower speed. The 211s to 215s versus the 220, 222, 225 for your first lap before you take the green. And I think that's because the tire temperatures and the track temperature is hot, tire temperature is getting up there, and Kyle Kaiser says my car was sliding around. So interesting to see how teams, engineers, drivers react to the ambient temperature, track temperatures here at Indy.
It is definitely something you have to chase, but it's really hard. It seems to be very hard to be in that right envelope with these cars. You're either right on it or you're...
And the window's so small.
And I can't understand why it's so difficult, which right now I'm already starting to think about the balance in the race. It's going to be very hard. You're going to start off early in the morning, and it's going to be hot in the afternoon. So to find a setup that will work throughout the whole race is going to be very difficult. Tomorrow is going to be very, very tricky.
Now, I spoke about warm-up laps. That was a 2:08 for Jay Howard. Maybe a little bit too slow because that lap was a 2:25, and if he gets up to, say, 2:26, 2:27, then you look back at that as a driver and go, I should have had a faster warm-up lap. If he continues at the 2:25 range, we know that's the max in the car, so the truth will be here in just a very short straightaway.
I would venture that it will be slower than his first lap.
4-lap average for Jay Howard yesterday was 2:26.098. A very consistent lap 2 to lap 1, as you see top of the screen.
You see that last movement he makes, pulling the car away from the wall? That costs you speed.
But why do you do that?
Because you're going to hit it.
Yeah, that's right. You feel like you're going to hit it, so you actually have to keep the steering wheel into it.
We were talking to Rick Mears earlier this morning, and he was explaining how you have to coach the car around the corner because it kind of let it do what it wants to do. And I, for once in my life, I for a second disagreed with him. And I said every car that I drove around here wanted to go into the wall. You have to keep it off the wall. And it really is hard to let these cars have their way, because the more you try to turn it, the more speed you scrub off.
Yeah, a car to go around here quickly, I always found, has to float. And it sounds like a weird term, but you have to guide it into the turn by just basically squeezing your wrist and letting the car do all the work. And if the car is doing the work and you're not turning the steering wheel, you have a fast car.
He's having a very good run, very, very consistent. Very little drop off from his first lap. His third lap was a 2:25.2. His first lap was a 2:25.5. We'll see what he does in this one.
So checkered flag up here for Jay Howard. And let us see. That fourth lap was a 2:25.2. So yes, 4 incredibly consistent laps at an average speed of 2:25.388. That will put him 22nd for the moment, with 8 cars to go in this Group 1 qualifying. The rest of Group 1 and the Fast 9 shootout coming up on ABC at the top of the hour. Marco Andretti will be next onto the racetrack. We'll also continue here on the stream, but ABC starts in just a minute.
Is a presentation of ESPN on ABC.
It is pole day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The starting order of the 33 drivers in next Sunday's Indianapolis 500-mile race being determined today. This is Marco Andretti taking the green flag to begin the traditional 4-lap, 10-mile trip around the speedway. The average speed of those 4 laps will determine where he will line up next Sunday when the green flag waves. Alan Bestwick with the 98 winner Eddie Cheever, 2-time runner-up Scott Goodyear. Marco Andretti now making another attempt at qualifying after his bid yesterday didn't go as fast as possible. We heard from Marco a few minutes ago, and he said he thought they'd have more speed today than they had yesterday.
Well, we're going to see if it's the truth or if it isn't. Sometimes speed is very elusive here. You can have it in one part of the day, and it will not carry through to the end, but he is capable of going really quick around here.
Our tracker, this Group 1 qualifying, sorry, Scott, the highest you can start is 10th. Then we'll see the Fast 9 shootout among yesterday's 9 fastest a little bit later on, closer to 5 o'clock Eastern time. So you see Marco right now tracking to be the fastest of all the drivers that have run so far today.
And, when you think about Andretti, you think about the success that they've had here, but you also think about the heartbreak that they've had. And for young Marco Andretti, it's a lot of pressure to have the Andretti last name. There's a lot of pleasure to be here as an INDYCAR driver and all the pressures that go along with going 230 miles an hour. But for a driver that almost won the Indianapolis 500 very early in his career, is always strong. Probably the best racetrack that he races at here is at the Indianapolis 500. I guess I'm one of the many people that hope that he wins the Indianapolis 500 very soon, maybe this year.
31 years old is Marco. And as far as the Andretti name and its success here, remember that the team owned by Marco's father, Michael, has won the 500 the last 2 years and 3 of the last 4. They have shown a knack and a strength for getting it done here. And right now, Marco, with 2 laps in excess of 227 miles an hour, still being on pace to be the fastest of those that have gone so far today.
A vast improvement than what they had done yesterday.
Here's the white flag. 1 more lap to go for Andretti. Yesterday, his 4-lap average speed was 2:26.154. So unless he has some kind of really drastic fall off in this last couple of corners, he's going to, like he said he would, improve his speed from yesterday.
But just to make it clear, he could go 5 miles an hour faster than Castroneves, who was yesterday's fastest time, and he still would be 10th.
The best he could start is in 10th position after yesterday's bump day runs. Checkered flag is up. And for Marco Andretti, the 4-lap average will be 227.288 miles per hour. Mario looking on to see what the numbers are. Marco Andretti, 10th position for the moment.
as we welcome you inside the Pagoda and welcome you to pole day for the Indianapolis 500. Alan Destwick, Eddie Cheever, Scott Goodyear. So the Fast 9 shootout coming up later. For drivers today, you've already made at least one qualification attempt. Now you got to come out and do it one more time. Does it make a difference whether you start 10th or 30th when the green flag waves next Sunday?
The farther up you start in the grid, the least mathematical possibilities you have of being involved in accidents. The first lap around this place is horribly difficult. And you're on automatic the whole way around, and you cannot position yourself someplace that guarantees you're not going to get caught up in the accident. So starting back is not good. But really, if you think about it, over the arc of a 200-lap race, it doesn't make that much difference.
Well, we always talk about this, and every year that we come to the Indianapolis 500, it's no different than any other race. It's patience. It's getting through turn one, lap one. But you would be amazed that when you put the helmet on, you start the car up, how quickly, as drivers, forget that. And you're racing in an environment with 300,000 people there. It's very easy to get overhyped. People will do it. But you mentioned something. 200 laps is 500 miles. I broke this race up into 5 100-mile races. You have to think about it differently here, as Rick Mears says, if you're going to be successful.
Starting up front keeps you out of the chaos at the beginning of the race, but you can win it from any place on the grid. Somebody who's won it before is with INDYCAR on pit road.
And he's also one who has started this race from the pole, so he covers both those two contingencies. You just had a word with Matthias Lace, your teammate, who's doing this as a rookie. What did you tell him, Tony?
Well, so far he had a really smooth month, so I said, look, just keep doing what you're doing. I think he has a great chance to be the fastest rookie. And the last thing I told him, I said, if you are going to beat me, you better beat me to put me on the outside of row 4 or row 5. Otherwise, or row 4, sorry. Otherwise, I'm going to be really mad at you. So, I think both ABC cars did a great job this weekend. And we'll see. I mean, I haven't changed my car since Friday. And we're being from 228 to a 227. So we'll see what's going to happen. I think, on and all, it's been a great effort by this team. We put a lot of effort in, and a lot of guys working so hard to put these two cars. We almost made it to the Fast 9 yesterday, but let's put a good show for the fans today, and we'll see later on the Fast 9 who's going to get the pole.
All right, put on a good show. He's eager to get into his car. And he also commented that so many people have such a high stress level for qualifying. He says, you know what? I'm feeling pretty chill with all this experience.
It's a great thing, because running 4 laps at speed and qualifying trim around this place is a stressful endeavor for sure. Here's J.R. Hildebrand in the midst of that stressful endeavor. Driver originally from California, now in Boulder, Colorado, looking to make his 8th Indianapolis 500-mile race start. Driving for local team here in Indianapolis, Dreyer Reinbold Racing, team that only fields cars for the 500, while they'd like to expand that perhaps in the future. This year, expanding from 1 to 2 cars for the 500. Hildebrand had a little wall scraper a few days ago, but the team repaired the car, and he had a clean qualification attempt yesterday and is in the midst of a clean one here today, if not as fast as he would like.
One of the many drivers that probably should have a Borg Warner sitting on his shelf. It was just a turn and a short straightaway away.
That's not how it works, unfortunately. Almost doesn't really work here at the Indianapolis 500. But in his rookie year, he had the perfect race and had one corner left. And he put his car a little bit too high, turning into 4. And Weldon won, and he finished 2nd. And so definitely a thinking man's race car driver.
Very much so. Very much so. And love chatting with him, because when you do, you come away from it always learning something. But I always think every time we speak with JR, he is a guy that maybe thinks just a bit too much in the race car sometimes instead of just putting his foot on the gas.
Yesterday, his 4-lap average was 226.499. You see there on the screen, tracking about 225.5 now. So losing a little speed from yesterday to today, but through it with 4 clean laps. And at this point, that's the big plus for J.R. Hildebrand. Checkered flag, 225.418. That'll put him 23rd on the grid for the moment, with 6 cars to go. Hunter-Ray, Kanaan, and Rossi still to come. Pole day at the Indianapolis 500. Carlos Munoz on the track now. Former Rookie of the Year in this race in 2013, reunited this year with Andretti Autosport, though this is the first race he has driven this year and the only race he has scheduled with the team for now. You see Munoz averaging 226.4 so far and tracking to be in the 18th position at the moment.
Remember when he arrived on the scene back in 2013, how low he was down to the white line, almost to the grass, and we all commented we didn't think he was going to make it throughout the whole event. And surprise, not only did he make it, boy, he was in contention. And the driver of that is so fast here at Indianapolis.
He's a natural here. He for a driver that's so young, he's already had 2 second place finishes.
Remember how heartbroken he was when Rossi ended up on fuel mileage, making it to the checkered flag. Munoz charging up, fastest of all the cars he knew of around him. And he got to the checkered flag and he found out, whoa, what? There was another guy out there that made it on fuel?
Brutal.
He was heartbroken.
Brutal.
Checkered flag, 226.048 for Carlos Munoz. Sets him 18th in line for the moment. And earlier, Marco Andretti spoke with Rick DeBrule.
Well, Marco Andretti a little happier with his run today than yesterday, but let's talk about the winds. The conditions have changed in the last few minutes, and for people at home who really have no idea what a small amount of wind can do, what did it change?
I think I'm happy just because qualifying's over. We're ready to race, but yeah, I mean, lap 1, the car felt okay, and then lap 2, the exit of 1, I had a pretty big washout that I had to be all over the cockpit tools for in the closing laps. And just with this little gust, end to end, I was pretty busy in the cockpit with the tools, so you have to chase it a bit. Track temp's up too, so you know, it's sliding just a bit. But you know, all in all, not a bad run for the U.S. Concrete boys. I mean, I just want to be somewhat up there so we can just get to work.
All right, now it's all about the race setup for Marco Andretti.
And about the dream of winning the Indianapolis 500. Ryan Hunter-Reay, former winner, on the track on his warm-up lap.
Okay. Right now, what we think the right thing to do is to use 6th and 5th every lap. So every lap you're up shifting to 6th on the front straightaway with the tailwind, and then down into 5th in turn 1.
And great information, guys, because we chronicled this earlier in the previous show that the wind had started to pick up. So realistically, what you're trying to do is go along here either in 5th or in 6th gear, not change gears on your qualifying laps, keep it in the power peak that you want to make sure you can get the fastest speed. But what's happening now, because of that tailwind down the front stretch, let's listen to see.
Well, right now he's in 4th.
Up a gear. Will he get 6th?
Yep.
And he's gotten the green flag as he goes through 1. Let's hear from Jan.
I spoke with Ryan just before he got into the car, asked him about this morning's practice where he was the fastest, but that would have been in a draft. He said, my car is good in a draft, but it's not as fast as the other Andretti cars on my own. We have showed that with the exact same settings, I'm just not as fast as Rossi. I'm just not as fast as Andretti. I'm probably in the same league as Carlos Munoz that we just saw run. So he said, so today we're just going to try and get the most we can out of this car because each car has a little different personality, but it does race well.
Each driver's specific feel that he's looking for, his style of driving around this racetrack. It might seem weird, but every driver has a little different thing that they're looking for. Look at that speed going into turn 1.
235.
And as we heard on the radio, using 6th gear going into turn 1, using 5th because he's now got a small headwind going up the backstretch here into turn 3 where he's entering right now.
There's a 5-mile-an-hour spread between turning into 1 and turning into 3. That's how much wind there is.
Now let's watch here in the front stretch. At some point in time, he'll decide when it's best to go from 5th to 6th. Otherwise, he'd end up on the rev limiter and cost himself speed.
These are some pretty stout laps. First 2 laps at 227. Almost identical laps.
And generally, you don't want to change gears, as I mentioned, between 5th and 6th because it generally costs you time if it's in a no-win situation. But the track temperatures are coming up, as has been chronicled before, and also the wind is now picking up, so drivers have to change their lines going around the racetrack.
Let's watch the speed in the straightaway.
So 235 miles an hour. You know, when we used to do that, I used to think, okay, that's fine, I'm 235, I want 238. But now I'm sitting here looking at it going, that's fast.
It is fast. And it's a slippery track today. The temperatures are very high. It's just a really good run.
You heard Marco Andretti talk about using the tools inside the cockpit. The drivers can make some adjustments. They use what they call adjustable roll bars and adjustable weight jackers to change the handling on the car. So I'm sure that Ryan Hunter-Reay has been busy inside the cockpit doing the same thing.
Well, he was right about the fact that he wasn't going to be as fast as Marco Andretti. He was faster than Munoz. 4-lap average, 2:26.788. 12th now, with Rossi still to come as we work our way toward the Fast 9. Ed Jones next on track. Pole day, 4 cars to go in group number 1. Ed Jones giving the analysts a moment to suck in a deep breath and say, ooh.
Not supposed to be that close to the wall.
Started 11th, finished 3rd in his rookie year at Indianapolis a year ago. Now driving for Chip Ganassi Racing. Tracking after that bobble way back to 27th place. Yesterday he was 13th with a 4-lap average just barely under 227 miles an hour.
Riding along, you can see the difference in the speed. 233 going into turn 1. Previously, we just saw Ryan Hunter-Reay at 235 or 2 miles an hour at the end of the straight. Is a huge deficit to try to make up.
So that 3rd lap, dropping 3 miles an hour, is going to really hurt the effort here for Jones. Chip Ganassi cutting back from 4 cars to 2 for this Verizon IndyCar Series season, as well as for this Indianapolis 500-mile race. But Chip knows what it takes to get it done in this race as a team entrant. 5 times fielding the winning car and supporting the winning driver. Ed Jones in 27th at best on the grid for the 500. 225.362, the 4-lap average. Ryan Hunter-Reay has climbed from his car. Rick?
Yeah, Ryan Hunter-Reay, I can't say he's thrilled with it, but at least he's in the field. But let's talk about the work you're doing in the cockpit. The winds came up. You have tools you can use. Are you using them on a run like this?
Absolutely. You know, the fastest car is one that feels like it's on rails. So the front is really carving through the corner. And, you know, we had a good run. Car was really handling well. Last two laps, I should say, the front started to give up. So I got really aggressive with the tools, and that's when it started to get a little loose. But that was all good. I guess we had some big wind kick up on the last lap, which slowed us down on the back straight a little bit. But all in all, you know, I think that's the speed the car had in it. We just need to focus on having a good race car.
I was going to say, the magic question, will it race better?
Well, last time we had this DHL Honda qualified P19 in 2014, and we won the race. So hopefully we can start a few better than that and have a really good race day. If you have a good race car, it's 500 miles. None of it matters.
Once again, Ryan Hunter-Reay thinking about those 500.
Well, the worst Ryan Hunter-Reay can start is 15th with 3 cars to go in this Group 1 of qualifying. Monday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern on ESPN. Join Greeny, Beetle, and Jalen for Get Up. They'll break down the NBA Conference Finals. Jay Williams stops by to talk about prospects in the NBA Draft, and the HQ Trivia Craze hits the studio with Scott Rogowski. Get Up tomorrow at 7 on ESPN and the ESPN app. Getting up the temperature here in Indianapolis today compared to what it was yesterday. Changing track conditions, the ever-present wind affecting these race cars as they circle on this massive speedway. The cars only weigh a little over 1,600 pounds, traveling at 230 miles an hour down a straightaway. Yes, a 5-mile-an-hour gust of wind is noticeable by the guy behind the wheel. And the race car he's trying to keep under control underneath him.
And as Matthias Lace, who's on the track right now, number 4 in the ABC machine, we saw a beginning of a shadow starting in turn 1. As the day goes on here, that shadow will get a little bit larger, help the speed in turn 1 a little bit. But Eddie, as we know, it makes it a little bit more difficult as a driver going in there at 230 plus miles an hour to make sure that you are tracking exactly on the line that you need to be, because you're going from the sunshine, basically almost like driving into a tunnel.
Yeah, that's true. It's different, but you'll get used to it pretty quickly. But what you really love is the fact that the cooler it gets, the more horsepower you have, and the better the car handles. So you can start taking downforce out of the car and not pay the price.
So as Lace works his way through turn 2, we head to pit road. Jan Beekes.
And he had the fastest no-toe speed. In other words, this morning in the practice where he did not have a draft benefit of another car, he had the fastest lap, but the conditions are quite a bit different. I can tell you, The wind is gusting, but it's also shifting direction just a little. A few moments ago, actually on the prior run, it was pointed right into turn 1. Now it's a bit more towards turn 2. So there is constant adjusting going on in these cars. Matthias Lace, being a rookie, is having a quick education.
He is on a really good run. His first lap was a 2:27.8. His second was a 2:27.6. Very consistent and very fast. And like Hunter Ryan said, he's on rails.
You want to try that again?
No.
Hunter rails.
One time is enough.
Okay. Matthias Lace, one of 4 first-timers to make the field of 33 for this Indianapolis 500, driving for A.J. Foyt Racing. Young kid that everyone believes is fast, has a lot of potential. He just lacks experience. Sometimes what you don't know is good, but sometimes what you don't know is really important. And at Indianapolis, experience tends to be one of those really important things.
Well, remember, we spoke with Tony Kanaan when we first met Matthias, because they are teammates. And Tony said that he is super, super fast. Would not surprise me to see him on the podium this year and maybe even winning a race because he has no fear. One funny thing I did love that Tony said that because of his hair as it is, his helmet size is one larger than it probably should be. They love to have a little jab at each other while they're working in the trailer.
Checker flag for Matthias Lace, and he will complete his first efforts at qualifying for Indianapolis as the quickest in Group 1, 10th for now, with 2 cars left to go. We'll see those 2 cars after this message and a word from your ABC station. 2013 Indianapolis 500 winner, the popular Tony Kanaan, is on the racetrack driving for A.J. Foyt this year here at the Speedway. And Kanaan with a pretty good effort going so far. He's 2.5 laps in to his 4-lap run, averaging over 228 miles an hour. He needs to average better than 227.6 to top his Foyt Racing teammate Matthias Lace for the fastest time in this Group 1 of qualifying.
His wife Lauren on the right-hand side. Lauren was expecting their 3rd child later this year. And Tony, an ever-popular driver, every time he goes by, you can hear the roar of the crowd. And I'm looking out our studio window, and there's young kids waving flags, checkered flags, every time he goes by.
This is a driver that really knows his way around this place. He has an enormous passion for the Indy 500, and I would put him against anybody if he's in that lead pack those last 5 laps, 6 laps, whatever it might be.
And driving for a guy who has the most enormous passion for this Indianapolis 500, A.J. Foyt.
And so much knowledge. One of my greatest regrets was having an accident in turn 1 with Stan Fox when I was driving for Foyt here at Indy.
Tony Kanaan with no regrets from that run. 4 laps of an average 227.664 miles an hour. 1 car to go. Kanaan is 10th. He will either start 10th or 11th, the highest these Group 1 cars can go. Rick?
Well, standing by with the rookie, Matthias Lace. Now, I have to say, he's been the king of calm every time I've talked to you all week. But Tony Kanaan confided you were kind of nervous going into qualifying. Explain that rookie experience.
Yeah, of course I was a little bit nervous. You know, this is part of the game. I think all the drivers are nervous when they qualify in Indy. But I'm so happy, man. I mean, the team did a great effort to put these cars here. And now Tony just set a time a little bit faster than I. But, I mean, I'm so happy for the team. I'm so happy to be here. And we're going to be starting in the 5th row, right? 4th row? 4th row. That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I'm so happy for everyone here.
All right, let's talk about this rookie experience and what it's been like. I mean, how hard is it to learn how to run and qualify at this track?
I mean, it's pretty tough, but I'm came from Indy Lights, which is a tough category. And Indy Lights taught me very well how to qualify and to race here. So I think it was a great thing in my career that I raced in the Indy Lights last year. So it prepared me very well for INDYCAR now.
And he's got Tony Kanaan as a teammate, so he's got a lot of experience to help guide him through.
Now, Kanaan and Lace will start no worse than 11th and 12th, respectively. There's Larry Foyt with the slap on the back for Tony, as well as Lauren. And now on the racetrack is Alexander Rossi, another former winner of this 500, to cap off Group 1 qualifying These drivers could qualify no better than 10th, or could start no better than 10th, the way the system works here at the Speedway. And it all depends on the outcome of Rossi's run here, as the former winner from a couple of years ago gets it going.
Right now, they have two Chevrolets are the quickest today, Canaan and Laced.
Of the two manufacturers competing here, providing engines in the series, Chevrolet and Honda. This is Rossi in a Honda. You see tracking just behind the pace that Canaan set just a moment ago. Alexander Rossi has been one of the strongest drivers of this Verizon IndyCar Series season so far. Got a win at the Long Beach Grand Prix. Only one finish worse than 5th on the year, but then this is Indianapolis, and everything's different. It's all about one race.
He's already won it once.
Eddie, another driver that came over that has Formula One experience. So as you guys do traveling around the world, I've often wondered what it's like to go to a place like Monaco or what have you compared to when you come here for Indianapolis. 300,000 people. Is there anything like it on the F1 circuit?
There's nothing like the Indianapolis 500 anywhere. Not even Le Mans is like this. You don't ever have to explain to anybody what the Indianapolis 500 is. Wherever you are in the world, they understand it. When Monaco Grand Prix, you have to sit down and explain Formula One and so on and so forth. But going back to Rossi,
had a little checkup there.
Yeah, I saw that. I could hear that, and then obviously you can see the tracker going all the way up to 20th now. So he will be busy inside the cockpit using the tools, trying to collect the car. His heart rate is actually going through.
He's very busy trying to work out how he's not going to hit a wall by keeping his foot down, because he's been so close. Alan?
Also radioed to his team just a minute ago, said very loose. So that means the back end of the car wants to come around as he turns left into the corner. The front end has more grip than the back end. That elusive balance of a race car everybody's always searching for.
But, and once you know that, you make some adjustments, and if they're there again.
Look at the throttle. Look how much throttle he took out.
And
he still almost knocked the wall down.
Turn one, the tailwind's into one. So that means that the back end is loose and is getting worse by the tailwind that you have. The problem is, once you've done that early in the run, you still have another 2 laps to do.
I think he went for broke and took a lot of downforce out of this, and it's just not working. I mean, he's out of the throttle everywhere.
Look at that tracker dropping 32nd. Rossi could be part of that last row party they have later in the week.
He might fit into my jacket that we just wore a few minutes ago. I'm trying to get rid of it.
Checkered flag, Rossi 224.935, indeed 32nd for Alexander Rossi. Wow. He will have
look at this.
Great amount of work to do next Sunday.
Oh man.
Oh, I don't want to watch.
Well, I agree with you. You said he just went for it. Well, they went for it. They wanted that number 10 starting spot. Instead, he's going to be back in row 11. The Fast 9 shootout is next. Danica Patrick will be the first car on the track. Next Sunday, are you ready for a wonderful day of racing? It starts with the Formula One Monaco Grand Prix on ESPN at 9:05 a.m. Eastern. Then on ABC, the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Our pre-race coverage begins at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Of course, they both stream on the ESPN app. We know who will be lined up from rows 4 through 11 for the 500. That just finished being determined in this Group 1 qualifying on pole day, and Tony Kanaan set the fastest pace. He'll get the inside of row number 4.
Very experienced veteran. Look for him to move forward very quickly. Maybe a little bit of a surprise, his teammate, number 4, Matheus Lace, right beside him, and Marco Andretti. A pretty stout line there.
How about Dabby? With Unser. He should be in a good place in row 8.
James Davison with that crash, the bubble spot yesterday, 33rd, all the way up in row number 7. And some of those with disappointing runs, including Alexander Rossi, who we thought would compete for that 10th spot, instead winds up in the middle of row number 11. So Tony Kanaan, fastest of this Group 1. Rick DeBrule is with him.
Well, I can tell you, Tony Kanaan got out of his car, jumped out of his car, hubbed his group. You would have thought he had won the pole position, which we know he wasn't eligible for. Why was it so important to get that 10th spot?
Well, we worked so hard, and that's all we had for today, right? Yesterday, we missed the Fast 9 for just a little bit. The conditions, we were supposed to qualify at 1 o'clock. Because of the rain delay, we qualified at 4. Conditions have changed, and my gear was a little too long, and I couldn't make it for thousandths of a second. So today felt like a win for us. You know, we're a little team. we're working really hard, man. We don't have as big of a crew as other teams do. We built 2 brand new cars. AJ bought 2 new cars for me and for Mateus, and the least I could do for them was work really hard to at least put this car in the top 10. And we did it today. The rookie did well. He's the fastest rookie. That was my goal, to try to guide him through. He's doing pretty good so far as well.
All right, Tony Kanaan, right where he wants to be for today.
Animated, excited, one to watch next Sunday in the Indianapolis 500. All right, the Fast 9 coming up. Who will win the pole for this year's Indy 500? Danica Patrick first on track. The Idol 2-night finale event, including live performances from your judges, Katie, Luke, and Lionel, plus special celebrity guests, Nick Jonas, Patti LaBelle, and more. It begins tonight, live at 8, 7 Central, here on ABC. Rick DeBrule.
Yeah, standing here with Alexander Rossi. Needless to say, not the run you were hoping for. What went wrong?
It's a great question. Something, I think, because, you just don't have a fall off in performance like that. So, we'll look at it overnight and this afternoon, and, we'll fix it for sure. But definitely in Napa Auto Parts and Juddy Honda deserved to be higher up. I thought we were fighting for a position on row 4, but now we're on the last row. So that's just the way this place is. We saw yesterday there's a lot of curveballs that are unexpected that can happen around here, and that's what makes the Indy 500 what it is.
Remember, Alexander Rossi won this race after falling all the way back to the back of the pack, so he could potentially pull it off. Jan?
And Rick, we're about to get ready for the Fast 9, and of course the first car to go. Danica Patrick's wheels have just been rolled up. They're firing up the engine. That's nice timing. Every driver wanted to get in the top 9 for a shot at the pole. You did that on your return. How gratifying was that run yesterday for you and your team?
Yeah, it was the plan, obviously, to be one and done yesterday, and it definitely got to the point where we were far enough back in line that there was no going out, so you just kind of had to wait for it all to unfold. And Rossi made it stressful for sure at the end, but it's exactly what you just saw as to why you want to get in. It's like you're either 1st or 9th or 10th to 33rd, and you see what happens from day to day. This is Indy. That's what happens. Some days are good, some days are bad, and so we've been pretty consistent, and I hope that we can keep that going. We just trying to build confidence, not break it the whole month in a build up to the race. So let's hope this run is nice and steady and smooth and boring. That's what I need. I need boring.
Nothing like confidence when you're in the top 9 looking for a boring run. But as we've seen, conditions are changing, as Alexander Rossi just explained.
That's a great way to look at it. Just want a nice, boring run. No excitement. Just 4 laps at, 228, 29 miles an hour. Boring on your end, huh? Tomorrow, 8:30 Eastern on ESPN, Game 4 of the NBA Eastern Conference Finals. Celtics and Cavs. Celtics still lead the best of 7, 2-1, but boy, Cavs with a 30-point win last night. Coverage at 7:30 Eastern with NBA Countdown tomorrow on ESPN. Down to pit road, Rick DeBrule.
Yeah, standing by with Scott Dixon, who was just in one last conversation with his engineer, and we were joking. It's like, well, you've had 24 hours to prepare for this. What's that last-minute conversation all about?
Yeah, I guess, it's just, you watched the last few runs there, and there were some guys that had some pretty big problems. Track conditions are different. We didn't run at all in practice this morning, so you're just trying to make the best guess at it. But I'm really happy that we got into the Fast 9 yesterday, because at least the worst we can do is be 9th. As we just saw with Rossi, I felt bad from there. Obviously, they missed the balance a bit, and he was 10th yesterday, and now, to the last row. So makes for an interesting day. But yeah, just pumped. It's Indy qualifying. Hopefully the PNC Bank car is going to be fast, but it's stressful, man.
No worse than 9. That's not bad for Scott Dixon. Jan?
And Rick, you just heard Scott Dixon mention they did not go out for practice, but Joseph Newgarden and the whole Penske team did today. But you had a major moment. Are you glad now you found that out in practice and not in qualifying?
Yeah, and we were talking about it, should we practice or not? I'm glad we did. I think we learned some stuff. After the moment in turn 1, I was happy about it. We learned what we needed, I think, for this run right now. So that's what it's all about. They give us some practice to figure our things out. And I think the Verizon car has been quick all month. And I think we have a shot at being in the front row. How good on the front row? Will we be first? Will we be third? I don't know, but I think we've got a shot to be there. So I'm really pumped for Team Chevy and everyone at Team Penske, too.
All right, have a great run. And, of course, all of the Penske cars were present. The only one who did not do multiple runs was Simon Pagenaud, who was happy right out of the box.
All right, John, when you see hands that busy at Indianapolis, that is a major moment. Back for the Fast 9 after this message and a word from your ABC station. Nine drivers. One will be the pole sitter for the Indianapolis 500-mile race next Sunday. Which one of these 9 will it be? No, we've hit you with a few commercials in a row. We're going to get one more set out of the way so we can show you the Fast 9 uninterrupted. It's next on ABC.
These drivers will take to this speedway alone.
That is a bad, fast-looking race car.
Oh, he hit the wall! What a terrible crash!
Sebastian Bourdais lost control of the car.
Wow.
That just shows you what happens when these cars come unglued to the track.
Yesterday, we uncovered the 9 fastest. Today, we identify the quickest of the quick.
This is going to be close.
Is it enough for the 500 pole?
You're going to be P1.
Now this is Indianapolis 500 qualifying.
The prestige and pride that goes with being the pole sitter for the 500. Drivers going through their warm-up and focus routines, trying to relax, take the edge off. 4 laps, 10 miles around this most challenging of racetracks, trying to wring every bit of speed out of your car that you can to be that one at the end of the day, to be P1, the pole sitter for the 102nd Indianapolis 500. Danica Patrick will be the first driver to go onto the racetrack here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The drivers earning their spot in the Fast 9 in yesterday's bump day qualification runs. Now going in reverse order of their speeds from yesterday. Patrick 9th fastest. She'll be first today. About the journey for Danica Patrick, from a young girl leaving her home, dropping out of high school to move to Europe, to make her way through the tough junior circuits there, coming back to the United States, earning her way up to INDYCAR, recognized by Bobby Rahal as someone on the rise, becoming a winner in INDYCAR Series racing, and without question, making her fame by her success here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I think it's fair to say that of all the tracks in her racing career, this has been her best track, and this is where she'll finish her career in next Sunday's 500.
You know, it's very interesting because when we saw her at the test just a couple of weeks ago when she came here, Alan, you and I were standing by the pit wall, and she came up to say hello, and we said, "How are you feeling?" And she said, "Nervous." Yesterday, as we heard her talk about just a little bit a moment ago, she is now feeling more confident. It is a big step to get here when you're racing full-time in Indy cars to run at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Eddie, when you've been away since 2011 and racing in NASCAR, a completely different car, to come back here and compete, but to come back here and compete with a spotlight shining onto you, the pressure is on her full.
When she led the Indianapolis 500 for the first time, the whole world stood up and paid attention, and it's only fitting that she ends her career here. And to have gotten into the Fast 9 as easily as she did is a phenomenal achievement.
Patrick driving for Ed Carpenter Racing in this race. All 3 of Carpenter's machines, Chevrolet powered, made the Fast 9. So with a good team, with a comfortable team, solid first lap, 2:28.5. They had a group press conference last night with some of the faster drivers at the end. And I think it was 3 times in that press conference, Ed Carpenter said to Danica on the microphone, "You can't start any worse than 9th. You can't start any worse than 9th." So really, she can't start any worse than 9th in the 500, no matter how today turns out. Even at that, starting 9th, that's pretty good for somebody who hasn't been here since 2011.
If she keeps up this pace, I don't think she's going to start 9th. She's going to start farther up than that.
Second lap, 2:28.3. yesterday in making that 9th fastest run of the day. Danica's 4-lap average was 2:27.6.
You can see how she's working the steering wheel. She's doing that because she can feel the road all the way through her body, through that form-fitted seat. Her hand comes off the steering wheel, going to some of the cockpit adjustments that she has, the tools, as we call it in trade. So making a roll bar adjustment to make the car handle just a little bit different. The tires are starting to wear as the run goes on. The car starts to slide. She has to be on top of it to make sure she can keep her speed up.
White flag, 3rd lap speed for Patrick, 2:27.9.
You can hear the RPM sort of dip down a little bit in the middle of the turn. That's a scrubbing of speed. She feels that. She hears that. She also knows her speed because when she goes across the start and finish line, her computer dash tells her exactly the speed that she just completed.
But really, the only job she has is not to take her foot off the throttle, and she's doing that very well without using up all the track, which was a similar line that Castroneves took yesterday.
Elio was the fastest yesterday. Checkered flag. And the first driver to complete a Fast 9 run, Danica Patrick, in with a 4-lap average of 228.090 miles an hour. There's her team owner, Ed Carpenter, who will be the second to last driver to go. Himself a 2-time pole sitter for this 500. So qualifying is over. Now it's just the final practices and the race for Patrick. Scott Dixon, former winner of the 500 and pole winner for 2 of the last 3 years, heading out onto the speedway. So yesterday on bump day, 9 drivers, the fastest 9 qualified for this Fast 9 shootout. They get that 1 4-lap run, and the 4-lap average speed determines their grid positions in those first 3 rows for next Sunday's Indianapolis 500-mile race.
So these setups that the drivers have right now is high risk, I'm sure.
As we saw, and we thought that with Rossi, although there's been a report that possibly there was a tire pressure problem on one of the tires. So maybe with the tire pressure not coming up or not being set right, we're still waiting to have confirmation on that. But all the drivers were watching Alexander Rossi in the previous runs to that. As the weather conditions are changing, the track is getting tougher because the heat is coming up, the wind is starting to rise just a little bit, and it changes the car's handling from one end of the track to the other. Scott Dixon just went through turn 1. You saw a little bit of the shadow starting to cast itself because the sun's going down behind the grandstands in turn 1. All these things come into play as a driver that you have to compute going into the turn at 230 plus miles an hour.
Now, there are few in this sport that are better onboard computers than Scott Dixon. The winner of this race back in 2008, pole winner 3 times, including 2 of the last 3 years. You see the track temperatures much warmer today than they were here yesterday. And now Dixon, green flag and on the clock for his 4-lap trip around the Brickyard. Of the 2 competing engine manufacturers in the Verizon INDYCAR series, Chevrolet and Honda, of this Fast 9, 7 were Chevrolets, 2 were Hondas. Dixon, one of the 2 Hondas, along with Sebastian Bourdais. All of those Chevrolet entries in the Fast 9 belong to just 2 teams. Roger Penske and Ed Carpenter's teams got all of their cars into the Fast 9. So that adds up to 7 of the 9 spots with those 2 teams.
And it hasn't been that way the last few years. Honda always seemed to have a little bit of an advantage when it came to qualifying, but now I would say the upper hand is with the Chevy.
227.8, the first lap for Scott Dixon. Scott missed a good bit of the qualifying trim practice on Friday with a migraine and didn't get very many laps in. Felt better yesterday, hopefully feeling even better today, as you see his wife Emma heading up the pit lane to where Scott will bring the car after he takes the checkered flag.
But as we saw Emma walking on the right-hand side, the one thing I noticed, you can tell from her hair that the wind has picked up, which is very noticeable as we talk about for the driver. So we talk about the car handling different at both ends of the racetrack. It just really proves to you that it really does make a change on the track itself.
Let's watch the top speed. .230 turning into turn 3.
That's with the headwind.
That's with the headwind. It'll be probably a 233 turning into turn 1. That is a big difference.
And remember, we saw as high as 235. We talked about that shadow. Watch here as we go into turn 1. Dark, so your turning in point becomes very difficult as a driver. 235 in there again for Scott Dixon.
Now watch the speed start going down as they drag through the corner.
Tracking a little bit slower than Danica Patrick with 2 corners to go. On Saturday, Dixon ran a 4-lap average of 227.7. Checkered flag. And this 4-lap average will be 227.2. So Scott second of the 2 that have run to this point. Down to Rick DeBrule.
Well, Danica Patrick, before you went out, you said you were looking for 4 boring laps. Were those boring enough for you?
Yeah, I had one little slip of the front end on the exit of 1. That was the only non-boring part, but other than that, it was very straightforward. There's a gamble in just the amount of downforce and as you get going faster and trim out further, the balance becomes more critical. So we pretty much just him-hawed around about how do you accomplish the balance that we know exists from the day before and the day before that with the most amount of trim possible. So, but then you can't trim so far that you slide around. So look, the fear of, having a bad day is always there. Look at Rossi. I mean, he almost bumped me out yesterday, and then he, has a tough run and doesn't qualify very well. And that's possible here. Like, Indy's just crazy. It's one day to the next changes. So I'm grateful for all the good days that I've had. ECR has been fantastic. GoDaddy's back on the car. It's all good. It's all good. And I'm glad that part's over with. And now it's time for 500 fun miles.
Well, the first part's out of the way. Now she's ready for the race.
All right, Rick, thanks. Look at the smile. That's good to see. Think about it. Coming back here after not having been here since 2011. Things have changed, and she's been not bashful about stating that. People have asked her, well, do you remember the field? Hey, do you remember 2011 and what your car drove like? Joseph Newgarden remembers a couple of things. A, what it's like to qualify really well here at Indianapolis. You see, he started on the front row just a couple of years ago. He also remembers this morning when he had that big handful in turn 1 in practice. I should say this morning, early this afternoon, when his team was out in their final practice before this Fast 9. Newgarden driving for powerful Team Penske. Roger Penske, 16 times a winning entrant at the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Newgarden looking for his first, and the green flag here, and he's on the clock in the Fast 9.
Newgarden is a very aggressive driver. And that really doesn't help you that much around here. You need to be as smooth as possible. But in the race, I can guarantee you, if there is a hole, he will go for it.
We've seen him with some incredible passes, some even on his teammate last year to win events. Some people may think it's controversial, but as a driver, if you have an opportunity, you're going to take that opportunity, whether it's a teammate or not. So he's into a program now where he is very appreciative of what Team Penske offers him. Spent many years doing go-karting and junior cars and all that sort of stuff in here in the Midwest. And once he got to Team Penske, every day he said, I just can't believe the resources that Team Penske has and everything that's at your disposal, not only on racetracks, but also the training facility at their home base back in North Carolina, everything to improve the race driver.
228.8.
That is very stout.
Hello.
Boy, that Chevy sure is pushing him along in the straightaway. So smooth.
That's the thing here at Indy, right?
Yes,
it's smooth until it's gone. Second lap speed for Newgarden, 228.2. You see tracking fastest of the early runners in this Fast 9 so far.
Has not changed his line at all from the first to the second lap.
That number 1 on the car, as is tradition in INDYCAR racing. The champion carries that number 1. Newgarden, the series champion of a year ago in his first season with Team Penske. There's the captain.
Wheeling his car on.
talked about A.J. Foyt's passion for this place. I guess I'd put Roger Penske there on that same step of passion for the place with A.J.
3 laps done above 228. Speed's dropping just a little bit.
And we've seen that all day today. Remember, yesterday a lot of the cars, including the Penske cars, were getting faster as the laps went on. But as we've talked about in John Chronicle, that the track temperature has gone up, making the track a little bit more difficult to handle, a little greasier. The wind has picked up. So all they're trying to do is mitigate the drop-off here over their 4 laps and be as consistent as possible.
Checkered flag for Joseph Newgarden. And a new number atop the scoring pylon. It'll be number 1. 228.405 miles an hour. Scott Dixon now 3rd fastest. Rick?
Yeah, Scott Dixon probably not thrilled with that, but at least you're in the top 9. Now let's talk about the fact you did not go out for the morning warm-up, and the Penske cars did. Why not go out?
It's always a tricky combination, right? I think the track is always a little more desirable in the morning, so you can kind of sort of run down a lane that's probably not so good. We didn't practice last year, so we figured we'd do the same thing this year. So PNC Bank car was good. We tried a couple of things to try and maybe pick up a little bit of speed, but it didn't really go according to plan. But still, Fast 9, that's we were proud of that yesterday, and we'll have to see how the rest of this plays out. Conditions are kind of tricky. I imagine they'll probably get a little bit better as the day goes on, but still happy with everybody on the crew on the PNC Bank car, and hopefully, worst case will be 9th.
Exactly, at the right end of the real estate.
All right, Rick, thanks. So Dixie right now 3rd out of 9. Tonight after Indians Astros on ESPN. Sports Center with Scott Van Pelt. He'll talk NBA and NHL playoffs. Warriors Rockets tonight. A look ahead to Monday Celtics Cavs game. And of course Game 5 between the Golden Knights and Jets in the Western Conference Finals. Following Sunday Night Baseball, Sports Center on ESPN and the ESPN app. So the advantage to having teammates. Danica Patrick just drove for Ed Carpenter Racing. Spencer Pigot out there now with advice from his teammate.
Danica, just give some comments to your teammates.
Copy. The car was good. A little bit of understeer on the exit of 1 is definitely there. It's not super strong, but it's there. 3 and 4 is good. 3 is really good. 4 is slightly less front grip, but almost not noticeable. 2 also feels pretty good. So just a little bit understeer off of 1, but I came back on my bars from 5 to 3 on the front bar and 1 to 2 on the rear bar and left the crossway.
You did a really great job. Very good. Proud of you.
Jan?
And that was the voice of Don Halliday along with Danica Patrick, her engineer. He was here moments ago looking over the car for Spencer Pigot. You talk about the team cars. They decided not to make a change on his car physically. No front wing, no rear wing changes, no tire pressure. So all that debrief he got on the radio, he's going to make up those differences just like Danica with those anti-roll bars or the weight jacker.
All right, John, thanks. So first lap in the books for Spencer Pigot, 2:28.709 for the first lap. Pigot, 24-year-old from Orlando in his 3rd Indianapolis 500-mile race. We talked with him this morning in the garage as Eddie and I were wandering around. Spencer was by his garage in Gasoline Alley. He came walking out with this huge ear-to-ear smile. Said, "How you doing?" He said, "Doing great." And the whole time we talked with him, he never stopped with that ear-to-ear grin. That's how excited that young man is at the performance of this race car and his opportunity to possibly see his life's dream of winning the Indianapolis 500 is this weekend and next weekend.
He was brimming with confidence, and you can tell it's carrying through in this run. That is a very fast first lap. And he followed up with a second lap of 2:28.005.
So we are talking about making sure that the car stays constant, which is the difficult part right now with the heat and the track temperature and a small wind coming up that we heard Danica talking about, that push in turn 1. That's because you have that windsock, that tailwind pushing you into the turn, so not as much front grip on the car. So he's going to be working hard inside the cockpit to try to make sure he can make some changes to make this car better.
Flirting right there, that tracker bouncing back and forth, 2nd and 3rd. 2:27.9 the 3rd lap. And Joseph Newgarden's all 4 laps were in the 2:28s. So the big drop-off from lap 1 to lap 2 for Piggott is probably going to cost him a shot at topping Newgarden's time in this run.
You know, both drivers part of the Mazda Road to Indy program, and Spencer, one of the most successful drivers with that program, and a lot of wins along, giving experience to be able to run here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Checkered flag, 4-lap average, 228.107. That is second out of the 4 that have gone for Orlando's Spencer Piggott. Rick?
Yeah, here with the guy who currently is the pole setter, at least for the moment. The thing I want to talk about is this inter-team rivalry. This morning it was the Penske guys who were out there trying to find more speed, as if you needed more. Talk about what it's like to be on this team with all 4 of you to shot at a pole.
Well, we're competitive. You give us practice time, we're going to use it. We use it for a good reason. You know, for us, we're trying to figure every little bit out that we can. We want all 4 of these cars to be up at the front. And I think these guys deserve it. We have such amazing people at Team Penske. It's a big group. A lot of people working on these race cars to make them go as fast as they do. And, you know, the Verizon car's been quick all month. I think Team Chevy's done their homework. It's good to be with Chevrolet. They really do a good job around Indianapolis here. So we'll see what holds up. I don't know if that'll be enough for pole. I think we maybe had a little bit more in it that we didn't eke out. But it was close, and it was an overall good run. So I'm satisfied for these guys and all the work that's been put in.
So if you could do it again, what would you have done differently?
It's always little things, you know. You always feel like you had something you could do different after you did it. And I mean, it's just hindsight's 2020, right? So I would have done a little gear difference, maybe done a little downforce difference. The driving differences. There's all small things that you can just make a little bit better after you've already done it. So that's the way it goes. You got to try and predict it.
All right, Joseph Newgarden, anxious to see whether his time holds.
Rick, thanks. Next on the track with 5 drivers to go, Sebastian Bourdais. Won 4 consecutive championships earlier in his career in open wheel racing. Of course, the real story about Seb this May relates back to 12 months ago when on Saturday of qualification weekend, while on a run that was tracking toward pole position, the car came unglued off the speedway surface, as Eddie called at the time, in turn 2. He had an incredibly awful crash, destroying the car and sending him to the hospital here in Indianapolis with pelvic injuries. They said he'd be out for the season. He came back and ran the final 3 races of the season, then started this season by winning the year's first race. He's the only driver to have led in every race this year so far in the Verizon IndyCar Series, and he's out here now in the Fast 9, trying to see if he can secure the pole position for the 500. He's the last Honda to have a shot at it today, and Bourdais driving for Dale Coyne Racing with Jimmy Vasser and James Sullivan as ownership partners as well, has managed to find a little bit more speed than many this month carrying the Honda badge in qualifying trim.
Absolutely. And he has a very small nucleus of engineers that have been with him for a long time, and they have made Dale Coyne's race team into a winning effort. And you have to count him in as one of the drivers that can win the Indianapolis 500. He's just so savvy and so smart at making the right decisions behind the wheel.
And when you talk about a small nucleus group of engineers, compare that to what we just heard with Joseph Newgarden. He says a lot of people working on it. I mean, the size of the facility and the amount of people are probably double, maybe more over at Penske compared to Dale Coyne. So certainly a driver and a team that's really punching above its belt line, and I think they are just doing a great job right now. Another great speed.
A couple of really good laps there. The first lap a tick slower than Newgarden's. The second lap a tick faster than Newgarden's. And this is all about a 4-lap average, but lost a little bit of time here on this lap.
That time lost was over in turn 2. That's where the wind's now starting to shift. Car handles different, like we heard from Danica in turn 1. A little bit of a pushing you into turn 2 also.
Third lap down to 227.4. He lost a full mile an hour on that lap. Doesn't sound like much when you're talking 228 to 227, but in qualifying here in Indianapolis, that's a lot.
And Alan, that's just a small difference of what you've done with the car or how it moves. Sometimes a little bit of a slide, using a little bit more track, a little bit more real estate. As a driver, you feel that every inch of the track that you go around, you know before you get across the start and finish line, before you see your time, if you've actually made the car go a little slower.
So checkered flag for Sebastian Bourdais. And the 4-lap average will be 228.142 mile an hour. Nice recovery again, up over 228 on that 4th lap. If not for that hiccup on lap 3, those were 3 of 4 really great laps. Second fastest so far for Bourdais. Rick?
Well, that moves Spencer Pigot back a notch, and while you can't be happy about moving back, you still have to be thrilled as to where you are in this field.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, starting inside the top 9 is a big achievement for us. You know, for me, it's at least 20 positions better than I've ever started here before. So very happy with our preferred freezer car, and you know, I don't think it's much of a surprise to see all the ECR cars up front here. And you know, now qualifying's over, we'll focus on the race, but it's been a great day.
And let's talk about the race. How different is it going to be running this in the race, and how different is the setup going to be?
It's going to be a lot different. You know, I think everyone's kind of been struggling in traffic, especially behind a lot of cars. So we have one thing going for us that, you know, we won't have too many cars in front of us at least to start the race. But, you know, it's going to be a tough race. It's going to be important to get the car working well behind others. And, you know, hopefully we can make some passes and get up there.
All right, Spencer Pigot still got that smile on his face.
And why not? You saw the numbers. He started 29th in both of his previous 500 attempts. He can start no worse than 9th in this one. And at the moment sits 3rd out of the 5 drivers that have gone. Will Power out on the track beginning his warm-up laps. Jan?
And he, of course, is the first Penske benefactor of teammates. They have decided, based on Joseph Newgarden's run, remember his fall-off was very minimal. They added downforce at the last moment before they sent Will Power out. A half a turn of front wing, 2 turns of rear. The idea is need a bit more downforce today so the laps don't fall off. They told him the last thought on the radio, if you get to 6th gear, you'll be fast enough for pole.
All right, Jan. Well, here is Will. Next time he comes by, he'll get the green flag to begin his 4 laps around. Power, the most recent race winner in the Verizon IndyCar Series last Saturday, a week ago yesterday, winning the IndyCar Grand Prix on the Speedway's road course. Had a terrific race-long fight with Robert Wickens that they traded back and forth on different tire strategies before Power, pun intended, powered away at the finish line, yet while saving fuel, got away from Scott Dixon, one of the best at maintaining speed or making speed while saving fuel. So for Will Power, giving Roger Penske his 200th IndyCar Series win, you have to think after winning a championship and winning as many races as he has, the next big check mark to make on the resume for Will Power is to have his likeness on the Borg Warner Trophy as an Indy 500 winner.
Especially since he's a Penske driver. I think that's required, wouldn't you say, Scott? You've got to win at Indy, and he has come so close to winning at Indy.
Well, certainly expected if you drive for Team Penske, not only just Indianapolis, but also performing for all races in the championship. His warm-up lap of 2:22, and you heard the report of adding just a little bit more front wing and rear wing, and hopefully if he can get to 6th gear, that would give him the pole because he'd be able to go fast enough, as we see team owner Roger Penske looking on the right-hand side. So a 2:28.8.
He was in 6th gear.
This is all going to depend on how long his tires last.
But should be a little bit of help on reporter with a little bit more wing in the car. And when they said about 6th gear, when you add more wing, you add more drag to the car. So that means it's going to go slower down the straightaway. And they might have only been able to achieve 5th gear. And they're using 5th going into turn 3. Probably will use 6 coming down the front stretch here because he has that slight tailwind that we've reported.
Second lap is really important.
Hit 6th gear there, 228.8, another 228.8.
Oh, he's being so delicate with his car. Look at that. There's just no change, no immediate change of direction from him, like we've seen other cars coming out of the corners.
Sorry, Eddie. Joseph Newgarden did 228.4 on his first lap, then 228.8 on his second, down to 228.2 on his third. Will faster at 228.8 on the first, equaling at 228.8 on the second. Let's see what lap number 3 is here as Power continues to track as the fastest so far. 228.4.
Amazing.
I asked Helio Castroneves, his teammate, how does Will Power go so fast on road courses? He says, I've looked at his data. I don't understand it. I can't make it go as quick as he does. But this is a reversal because Will Power is being such a great drive here. But the guy that has the oval prowess is Elio Castroneves, so we'll see if he'll be able to go faster than Will Power is shortly.
Look how small amount of road he's using.
Castroneves will be the last driver to run. Checkered flag. Will Power. Is it enough? Yes. 2:28.607, the 4-lap average speed for Will Power. New leader in qualifying. And Roger Penske still with one more try. Two more tries, excuse me. Two of the final three cars are the captains. Roger trying to win an 18th Indy 500 pole position to go with his 16 race wins. All-time career poles, Will third on the list. A couple pretty good ones in front of him. Sebastian Bourdais sits third in the grid right now. Rick?
Well, Sebastian, yesterday we were talking about this qualifying was 1 year in the making. Congratulations, you're safely in, but you said that was quite a ride.
Yeah, I just want to give a little message to my wife. I know she's watching. It's been probably the hardest weekend we've ever had to go through, so love you, babe. Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard today. Downforce was light. Car was very, very much on top of the track, sliding a lot. Tried to be safe with the tools, but we were just too shy on downforce, really, for the conditions. We didn't change anything from yesterday, but almost too little. So I had a bit of a moment there in one. I didn't trust it, so I got my foot off of it, and it showed big time on the speeds, but pretty happy with the run, the way things went. I just, I can't, with what happened last year, you can't just disregard the signs of the car anymore.
I was going to say, with what happened last year, when you were in that run and you had a decision to make, did that influence the way you drove the car today?
Yeah, for sure. I probably would have stayed in it pretty easily last year, but I thought twice about it this year. That's for sure.
It's amazing what we learn in life. Sebastian Bourdais safely in the field.
Now for sure. Again, this terrible crash. Look away. You don't wish to see it again, but that's what happened to Sebastian a year ago. And Scott, you've talked many times about not really realizing until you retired. You were in your bubble driving, focused on doing what you do, but once you retired, understanding what it was like on your family at home while you came out here and other places doing what you do.
You know, and I think it was the years after that, sitting with my wife, Leslie, just having conversations, her finally opening up about what they go through as a spouse when you're not only off testing cars or racing, and especially when they're not at the racetrack, like Sebastian just mentioned, you know, and it's very tough on them, but they will never tell you when you're competing because they don't want to influence your thoughts, your decisions on when to maybe keep your foot on the gas or retire. So yeah, I learned a lot after I retired, and I know that we've done some pieces on wives here previously. They don't share everything that's in their thought process with us on TV or to their drivers that are out there, and understandably so.
Here is Simon Pagenaud driving for Team Penske. 3 cars to go. Jan?
And this will be very interesting. We know that the Penske team does not like to put all their eggs in one basket. So for Simon Pagenaud, he is running less downforce than both Joseph Newgarden and what we saw Will Power do just a moment ago. So hedging their bets, making sure they have all the bases covered. So watch for Simon Pagenaud potentially with faster straight line speed, but it'll be skating in the corners.
He's the first one to do a 2:29.1. And the track is getting quicker. The cooler the track gets, the bigger that shadow is, the more grip the cars are going to have.
He did the 2:29 in his first lap. Can he keep the consistency there across all 10 miles of this run?
Well, the weather has been changing here, guys. I've been looking out the window and watching the pylon, the sock right there. Look at it. It has got no wind whatsoever. Talk about the timing of perfect conditions right now for Simon Pagenaud. This is his time.
Second lap, 2:28.9, still tracking as the fastest so far. Tim Cindric on the right, team president for Team Penske. Roger Penske, the captain, on the left. And Simon Pagenaud with his right foot planted firmly on the floor.
I think he riveted that pedal to the floor.
And I did notice this morning in practice, he was one of the Penske drivers that went quick right away, went and did his 4-lap test run, and then parked the car. So very happy for it, obviously.
Third lap, 2:28.6 for Pagenaud, and 1 lap to go. A little pop you hear when they downshift the car. The engine will do that. Some people ask me sometimes, ooh, is something wrong there? No, that's a very normal thing on these cars.
And these are so different. They're so nice to drive now with the paddle shifters versus back in the old days. You all started out with the shifter and the knob on the side.
One last corner, checkered flag in sight. And Simon Pagenaud is going to set the new mark at the top of the board. 2:28.761 with 2 drivers left to go. Will Power now down to second, Rick.
Yeah, and as soon as he got out of the car, he said he pretty much knows what went wrong. So explain what went wrong.
Yeah, I think we added too much downforce there. Just before we went out, my engineer radio and said I'm going to add a little bit of wing. So I was pretty stuck. The car was good, a lot better than practice today. Had a couple of messy shifts there, a little bit in the limiter. Seeing how tight it is, it's obviously that sort of thing can make a difference. But yeah, hopefully we can stick on the front row. There's a couple of real quick guys to go though.
Pole sitter for just a moment, but had to give it up to his teammate.
Well, for Will, he can start no worse than the inside of row number 2. But those 2 drivers to go, yes, they have been pretty fast. And here's one of them. Ed Carpenter from Indianapolis won the pole for this race in back-to-back years, 2013 and 2014. Begins his warm-up effort here. Carpenter, all 3 of his cars have been fast. All 3 of them made the Fast 9. He is much loved here, much cheered for here. The fact that a victory has eluded him at this speedway is frustrating for him, but we all know how difficult this race can be to win. Is this the year that fate smiles upon the guy who, on the side of his helmet on that black stripe, it just says, Ed. Kind of a throwback scheme, if you will. So here it is, green flag. 4 laps to go for Ed Carpenter, and then just Helio Castroneves left.
Ed is definitely capable of ruining the Penske party this afternoon. He's proved to be very fast around here. His cars are always quick, as you can tell with all 3 of his cars in the top 9. I think we might have a surprise here. And the track is getting quicker by the minute.
I gotta tell you, it wouldn't surprise me.
No. Not at all, and you can see how controlled his car is because he's being able to keep it away from the wall. First lap here coming up.
2:30. Here we go.
Can he put 4 together like that? Lap number 2 for Ed Carpenter. Survey says 2:29.8, still tracking fastest.
The car's on rails.
It's on rails, and yet it's on edge, right?
The fastest way around here with these cars this year seems to be the least amount of movement you put into the wheel. And he's on it. And look at all the room he has left, Scott.
It's amazing. Tells you the car's working. It's rotating through the middle of the turn. He's not using up all the road with the exception of there in 4. Lap number 3 coming up.
White flag for Ed Carpenter. 3rd lap. 2:29.5. Averaging 2:29.8. He's got to beat 2:28.7.
It's the fall off that everybody's concerned about. We've talked about it with the track temperature. He has to keep that momentum to speed up for lap 4.
checkered flag. Is it good enough for Ed Carpenter? Yes, it is. 2:29.6. One driver left to go. It'll be Elio Castroneves on the speedway in a moment. Ed Carpenter fastest, Simon Pagenaud now second, Rick.
Yeah, going through a qualifying run is tough, but then having to watch the next guy go out and qualify, it seems awful hard. Let's talk about what it's like to be on the pole for a moment, and then we'll have to watch somebody else go out.
Hey, that's the game. That's qualifying. It's exciting. It's great for the fans. It's 4 laps. You're completely on the edge of everything. We try to trim the car as much as we can to go super fastly on the straightaway. Manage to go through the corners for 4 laps, but it's holding your breath. Definitely the part that I hate the most is watching, because you never know what the others have. So, hey, good job to Ed and Chevrolet. They did a tremendous job giving us the power. And I think it's going to be a front row. I mean, it is a front row, so it's a great job from Team Penske.
All right, and your teammate still has a chance at it. But once again, Simon, a little sadness in his eyes as he watched that happen.
Here's Ed. Listen to the crowd. How cool is that? Good job, Dad. How cool is that? So, one driver stands between Ed Carpenter and his third Indy 500 pole, and here it is, the last man on the track, the 3-time winner of the 500 and former pole winner, Elio Castroneves.
Okay, Elio, so on Simon's first lap there, he shifted up to 6th gear and going into turn 1 and held it all the way around until the next time, then downshifted in the short chute.
But you said that was worse, correct?
For his first lap there, it looked like it was better.
Copy that.
There was additional radio conversation after Elio Castroneves heard the crowd and saw the speed of 230 miles an hour for Ed Carpenter. He knows the benchmark he has to hit. Radio communication was 230. Do we have the gear for that? They go, you have the gear for it if the wind dies down on the back straightaway, and they've taken wing out of this car. Try to give him all the speed to challenge Ed Carpenter.
Green flag, 4 laps away from knowing who the pole sitter will be for the Indy 500 next Sunday. Elio Castroneves, a 4-time pole winner himself, back trying to join that 4-time club of 4-time winners of this race.
Warm-up speed's 220, just a little shy than what Ed Carpenter had on his warm-up speed.
The last time he won the 500, he started on pole position. Back in 2009. Lap number 1, that's 228.9. He's got to average 229.6. Still tracking for a front row spot.
All of Penske's hopes are on this man's shoulders right now.
Well, guys, when you look at the gear that he's in right now, he's in 5th gear. If he was going faster, being able to use 6, that means he was getting the speed out of the car. Is the car too planted down to the ground, has too much downforce, too much drag? We don't know, but it's not getting the speed he needs.
Windsock is kicked up again a little bit. You talked about what a big difference a small gust of wind can make.
Pole belongs to Ed. There's no way he can pick up the difference in the next 2 laps.
Down to 228.5 for the average, so he's a full mile an hour off and tracking 7th. White flag. One more lap in Indianapolis 500 qualifying. Will Ed Carpenter become a 3-time pole winner? it is not going to be Castroneves, at least as far as qualifying today.
You can tell the balance is off in the car because if the balance is perfect, cornering speeds is up, becomes your straightaway speeds are a little quicker. Elio's the master at qualifying here, so the car itself is just not working for Elio.
Don't count him out for the race next Sunday, but for today, it's not going to be fast enough. Checkered flag. Castroneves qualifies in 8th position, and Ed Carpenter is a 3-time pole winner of the Indy 500.
Thanks. Hey, I wasn't expecting a 230. I was like, oh, fuck. You had me scared after your run this morning.
Ed Carpenter, welcome back to the pole position here at Indy. What is it about this place? Or you just go home at night and dream of this place because you have got it completely wired?
Most nights, yeah, I do, to be honest. But I really just got to thank my team. That first lap blew my mind. You know, I figured we could run a 229 based on last night. My run last night actually wasn't very good. The car wasn't near as good as we've been. So I knew we had more left, but I wasn't expecting a 230. But the whole ECR team, especially the guys in my 20 car, they put so much love into this car. And it means everything to me to put us in a position like this and to be able to share the top 9 and this whole thing with Spencer, his first time in the top 9 with Preferred Freezer, and Danica with GoDaddy. She's not getting started on her side hustles yet, but super happy to be here. And obviously it couldn't be possible without Fuzzy's Vodka, Fuzzy Zeller, Stuart Reed. I love you guys, and hopefully we can keep doing this a long time.
All right, a lot of folks have talked about what this package is going to be like this year, and they were saying, you know, the one place you want to be with this car is up front. How critical is it going to be to have that front row starting position?
More so than my previous 2 poles. I think it's good. It's beneficial. I mean, it's always nice to start up front just because you can control things a little bit. But, you know, unless we all figure out a lot with race setups over the next couple of days, you know, it certainly feels good knowing that I've got clean air in front of me, at least as long as I get a good start. So I'm excited to get back in the car tomorrow and keep working on a race setup to hopefully make it as perfect as this qualifying car was, because of all the pole runs I've had here, this one, believe it or not, came the easiest. So, big buddy, thank you.
All right, you are not just a driver, you are a team owner, and you talked about the fact that you've got Danica's car and Spencer's car. What does it mean to you as somebody who's built a business and not just run as a driver to have that kind of success here today?
You know, the beauty of it is I don't have to worry about it. The team behind me, from Colleen Howerton, Tim Broyles, everyone in the office, Mike Bree, you know, they put a sign up at the beginning of the May that says you're not the boss anymore, and I adhere to the rules, so I'm here to drive race cars.
Congratulations, Ed Carpenter on the pole here for the 102nd running of the Indy 500.
Mario Andretti, Johnny Rutherford, Scott Dixon, Tom Sneva, and Arie Luyendyk. Now Ed Carpenter, 3-time pole winners at the Indianapolis 500. Ed has had a front row start in 3 of the last 5 years, but has had very little to show for it in the race, obviously hoping to turn it around next Sunday. Local boy, very popular pole sitter today. Ed Carpenter has won the #1 starting spot for the Indianapolis 500, place an event he's been around literally almost all of his life. What would a win mean to him and his family next Sunday? It'd be big. The month of May is full of open-wheel thrills. This race has been building for more than a century. Heroes, heartbreak, history. All that has happened before and will happen again in one afternoon. It's the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500. Coverage begins at 11 a.m. on ABC. That is next Sunday, and here is how they'll go to the green flag for the 500 with Ed Carpenter sharing the front row with Simon Pagenaud and Will Power.
A huge mix-up of teams and drivers right there, but you have to really give a shout-out to Ed Carpenter because we really thought Team Penske with their 4 top runners would be on the pole position.
I'm going to be saying this a lot. It's a great day for Chevy and not such a great day for Honda. But all the qualifying stuff is over right now. You have to focus on the race.
Tony Kanaan, 2013 winner, looked awfully good in that A.J. Foyt car. His teammate right alongside him, Marco Andretti there in row 4. Also, there's last year's winner, Takuma Sato, in row number 6.
Pretty cool to see all the drivers that have been working so hard to be able to get in here, to get in the middle of the field like a lot of them are right now. A lot of new teams there. When we see Max Chilton and guys like that, they're going to have a real tough time trying to get through traffic, because the middle of the track, in the middle of the field, is very difficult.
And I think the biggest surprise of the qualifying day is Alexander Rossi. Thought he'd be competing for that spot in row 4 in Group 1 qualifying. Instead, a problem on his car, and he will start from the middle of row number 11. So there's the starting grid for the Indianapolis 500 as we head back to the pit lane in Yon.
And you talk about surprises. I think a surprise certainly is the fastest man, Helio Castroneves, on Saturday, does not end up being the fastest man today. And you say it's all about taking a risk, chasing Ed Carpenter?
Yeah, no question. We have 4 fast cars, and when we line up to the Fast 9, we got to make sure that somebody, we knew that he's going to be strong. Somebody got to take the short draw, and I was like, oh, I'll do it, So obviously we took everything out from the car, and it's surprised. The first lap I thought it was going to be even better, but in the end it just started getting really, really loose. And I was like, I guess I wear all my chances this morning, because I also was loose. So in the end of the day, the big day, obviously, it's Sunday. Yes, this is another race that we want to win. But great job, the entire organization. Great job to Ed as well for that 230. It was kind of like really incredible. And I tried. So now I just want to keep going now. I want to give a shout out to the Rev Group guys for giving the motorhome to keep relaxed this whole month of May. And hopefully we can get that big number, which is number 4. We can win from there, no question. But that was a tough qualifying, my friend. That was a tough one.
As you go for number 4 next Sunday, one of the team slogans, so to speak, is Penske preparation. You spent a lot of time last week working through race setups. How do you feel you stand in that configuration?
We all feel great, and you're right about that. We thought it's going to be raining on Saturday, on Friday, actually. So we start working really, really hard in qualifying because we felt that we're good. But, always something to learn when you come to this place. So Monday, hopefully the weather stays on, that we continue working the race car. And, now we're going to relax a little bit, because I tell you what, this qualifying, man, this is the kind of things I miss. I love this adrenaline rush, kind of like, we're going to make it or not. So it was just absolutely incredible. It's a shame we didn't get the pole position, but hey, I prefer the win than actually the pole position. Well, I prefer everything, but anyway.
Yes, a 4th win, of course, for Helio would be icing on the cake for one who's not full-time in the season right now, Alan.
It would be what he's here for next Sunday for sure. So next Sunday afternoon, somebody's going to get one of these. It was 20 years ago today. Not only that Dr. Pepper taught the band to play, it was 20 years ago that Eddie Cheever earned this one. He's been kind enough to bring it in and share it with us, all shined up and polished. What do you remember about that day, and what some of these drivers might be thinking about at the end of the day next Sunday?
I started 17th. I almost had an accident in the first corner, and I thought, well, the day's over, and it just kept getting better and better and better. And the best lap of all is the cool down lap when you're coming in, because you have a minute to spend with yourself by saying, how in the heck did that happen?
I just won the Indy 500.
And then you got to deal with all of that, and your world changes to the better.
Absolutely. So the week between now and the green flag next Sunday for the drivers, Scott, what's it like?
For the drivers that are up front and their cars are working, it's not a bad week. Tomorrow's all about getting together with your team, spending time in the racetrack, getting the car prepared for the race in our final practice. Yes, we have one last session called Carb Day. If your car's not been working, some guys have had problems. It's a week of scratching your head. It's a week of not getting a sleep. And it's a week of waiting until Sunday to wake up on Sunday race day to see if the car has been changed for the good. It's a tough week sometimes.
It's a totally different mindset than what they've had till now. You need to take your assets, which are a full tank of fuel, 4 tires, and make them last throughout the length of a run. It's no good to be really quick for 3 laps. It's no good to be quick for 10 laps. You have to make it run, and your car has to get to the point in that last refuel that you have at the race that it's fast.
Well, there's no question that it's a big deal to win the pole for the Indianapolis 500. You see the trophy, all the photos, the family moment there for Ed Carpenter. But it's a massive deal to win the Indianapolis 500 next Sunday. Based on what we've seen in the week's practice so far, what kind of race are we going to see next Sunday? Will it be any different than what we've seen the last few years?
Well, there's still a lot of questions as to how these cars will draft. In the past, we've had long lines of 10 cars. I don't know if that's going to happen this time. I've heard that they leave a much different hole when they punch through the air, and it's okay for missile number 1 to be passed or be followed by missile number 2. But all the fast cars behind them have a hard time in dirty air. So we will find out very quickly early on in the race.
And I think that's exactly what's going on. This new universal aero kit, everybody has the same body work now. If you're 1, 2, or 3 in the group, not too bad. Further back, it gets worse. If you're back from 8th to 10th, you're holding on for dear life. So I'm waiting to see what's going to happen on race day and really who understands it engineering-wise and can make a great race car.
All right, so it's all done but the race. And we'll see it starting at 11 a.m. Eastern with our pre-race show next Sunday presented by Pennzoil and our telecast presented by Firestone at noon Eastern time. What a 2 days of qualifications here at the Speedway. We've seen the highest of highs with Ed Carpenter here, and we saw the lows yesterday with James Hinchcliffe and Pippa Mann, and the emotions of not being able to make the starting grid for the 500-mile race. And then on Sunday, the speeds, Will Power will be on the front row for the captain Roger Penske, as will Simon Pagenaud. But the pole sitter for the 3rd time in his career is Ed Carpenter from Indianapolis. He'll be the #1 qualifier for the 102nd Indianapolis 500. We'll call it for you next Sunday. See you then.